music!
There is no terrible way to win. There is only winning.
We won't be out long.
Take your time. Track's all yours.
You ready?
The name on the middle of that steering wheel should tell you that I was born ready. Hit it.
Attaboy. Let me drive. I won't make a fool out of you.
I got a message for all of them. Shake and bake.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind? That just happened.
These cars, you sit in a box, a coffin, gasoline all around you. It isn't like it being inside a bomb.
It's tough enough being a girl on the track. Living in my dad's shadow doesn't help much.
You have to be kind to the car. You feel the poor thing groaning underneath you.
No race was ever won in the first corner.
I'm gonna give you an engine, low to the ground, extra big oil pan that'll cut the wind from underneath you. That'll give you 30 to 40 more horsepower.
Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You do it because you're driven.
Brakes are warm. Tires are warm.
I'll work in the cars and I'll drive and I'll eat and sleep and I'll work in the cars and I'll drive.
Damn fast, and when we run so close together, it requires fantastic concentration and rather special skills.
I was beginning to think I'd never be anything more than a piston-happy lead-foot punk. Then this starts to happen.
If you're going to push a piece of machinery to the limit and expect it to hold together, you have to have some sense of where that limit is.
Besides, the best drivers don't dwell on the future or the past. The best drivers focus only on the present.
They could never have imagined it, those pioneers who invented the automobile, that it would possess us like this in our imaginations, our dreams.
I'm gonna give you a fuel line that will hold an extra gallon of gas. I'm gonna shave half an inch off you and shape you like a bullet.
Somebody put it in your mind you gotta be perfect every time out or you're a failure. Well, forget that. Just forget it.
Racing is in my blood.
I was put on this earth to race cars.
I accept every time I get in my car. There's 20% chance I could die, and I can live with it, but not 1% more.
No, Nicky, don't bring the percentages into this. Don't be a pro. The minute you do that, you kill what's good about this. You kill the sport.
And at that speed, your reactions can barely keep up with these sudden changes in direction.
You ready to put away your toys and grow up?
You want me to work the pit and you drive? Fine, we'll try that.
The car's a living, breathing thing, and she's alive.
If any of us imagined, really imagined, what it would be like to go into a tree at 150 miles an hour, we would probably never get into the cars at all. None of us.
Are you ready to become a real race car driver?
I am just as good as anybody out there on that track, and I don't need anybody to win my races for me.
I wish my daddy were alive to see this, to feel this.
And when we get you primed, painted, and weighed, you'll be ready to go out on that racetrack. You hear me? You're gonna be perfect.
You don't understand what happens, do you? They make 10,000 cars, they make them exactly the same way, and one or two of them turn out to be something special. Nobody knows why.
When I won it was probably the last time I ever felt pure victory.
So it has always seemed to me that to do something very dangerous requires a certain absence of imagination.
Because I'm quicker than all of you.
Soon you will know what it is like to be defeated by the hands of somebody who is truly better than you.
The only thing to do here is to drive just as fast as you know how and hope your car doesn't break.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
If you ain't first, you're last. There's 40 other vultures out there who managed to finish the race on their tires. You see Darrell Waltrip using up his tires?
There's nothing I can't do with a race car.
But hell, isn't that what we're in this for? To stare death in the face and to cheat it? Come on, there's nobility in that. It's like being knights.
Sometimes you could swear the whole thing's falling to bits.
No pressure, nobody breathing down my back, just driving because I left it pure.
On the other hand, I suppose potential problems are in the back of your mind all the time.
So in many ways, I feel responsible for what happened. And
You were, but trust me, watching you win those races while I was fighting for my life, you were equally responsible for getting me back in the car.
You're so lucky. Sit there all closed in by machinery and bolts, precise things. There's hardly any room for you. It must be a nice, safe feeling.
Yeah, you gotta learn to trust something. Might just as well be the seat of your pants.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Well, we can drive. We can drive beyond the limits of the tires, the engine, the car, anything else.
Look out there is the perfect lap. No mistakes, every gear change, every corner. Perfect. You see it.
I just hope when you do, that I'm there to see it.
Ask any racer, any real racer. It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
But it isn't just business, is it? What we do, it's passion, love, which is why we are prepared to risk our lives for it.
Racing. That's the name of the game, isn't it? Win or lose, put up or shut up.
Why does everybody keep telling me what my problem is?
That you get so emotional.
You would never, ever say that to a guy.
If you don't leave your feelings off the track, you're never going to get what you want.
I'm a race driver, and I can win it on my Please let me race.
Fine. Then let's race.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Retro Racing Managers League. It's the 1990 Grand Prix World Championship season and it's the French Grand Prix at Paul Ricard. I'm Jake Sanson, beside me is Tom Cairns, and do we have a special pair of races? Pre-qualifying up next. It's not a massive surprise to see Bruno Giacomelli's the Russe Lola on pole position once more, Tom, but the Zach Speeds in second and third on the grid, that is a very pleasant surprise.
A very pleasant surprise indeed, and boy, they could do with a really strong showing here at Paul Ricard and get Zach Speed into the Grand Prix, which I don't think they've managed to do so far this season. And it's no surprise as such for Bruno Giacomelli and the Lola team to be up there once more for the pre-qualifying grid. And last but not least, a very happy new year to you, Jake, and to everyone who's tuned in for this very big event.
Yes, it is great to see everybody here in the 2021 season as we go through the walls of time into the 1990 Grand Prix 2 World Championship. For those who are not sure what we're doing, the Retro Racing Managers League, it's very simple. It's like F1 Manager, and we've got all of our downforce staff and various guests who have joined us as well. They run a team, they pick the drivers, they pick the engine, the tyres, they choose the strategy over the course of the season as well, whether to invest their money on horsepower or on reliability. And over the course of the season, obviously, they get prize money based on how their cars do. So essentially, if you are into the sort of motorsport management simulations, this is one of those, and it's our very own unique take on it. We started our career in 1990, and we are still there in the midway point of the season, and our plan is to continue and go as far into the future as we possibly can. So a few years down the line, we could even end up as far in as 2021. You never know. So we're going to start our run with the pre-qualifying race. Now, in pre-qualifying, which is the GoBobby.UK Cup, basically, if you are one of the first 3 teams across the finish line, then you will get into the Grand Prix. Doesn't mean that you have to be first across the line, but if you're one of the first 3 teams across the line, then you will progress through to the Grand Prix. So, we will have 27 laps around Paul Ricard, the old configuration, of course, and it's Bruno Giacomelli alongside Piercarlo Ghinzani on the front row of the grid, the highest that the Zach Speeds have been all season, and it's great to see them so high up. Joachim Winkelhock is third, Pierluigi Martini in the Minardi is in 4th place. Aguri Suzuki in the second Lola is in 5th place alongside JJ Leto, who's done well in the Monteverde. Then Martin Brundle and Willie T. Ribbs are together on the 8th row of the grid. Eric Bernard is there in 9th alongside Eddie Irvine. Michael Schumacher is 11th on the grid for Reynard alongside the Coloni of Ukyo Katayami. Mark Blundell and Damon Hill are on row 7 together along with Johnny Herbert and Roland Ratzenberger. Alessandro Zanardi is 17th on the grid along with Martin Donnelly, who now takes up the berth at the Goodness me, Tom, you're going to have to remind me where Martin Donnelly is racing these days. I think it's Eurobrun, isn't it? Yes, he's joined the Eurobrun team. I do apologise. Yannick Dalmas and Gabriele Tarquini are together for AGS. Paul Warwick and Alain Menu struggling to get straight-line speed in their Porsches around Paul Ricard, but their cars should be much more reliable. Alan McNish, Mike Thackwell, Juan Fangio II and Christian Fittipaldi line up on the starting grid. And the cars are ready for the action. It's going to be a very tough battle ahead of us. We know how difficult it will be, but the drivers are ready for a fabulous, fabulous battle. 27 laps, and it'll be Giacomelli, Ginzani, Winkelhock, Martini, Suzuki and Leto from the front of the starting grid. So action is about to get underway. Let's race as the cars get underway. So Bruno Giacomelli gets a solid start as the field makes its way down to the first corner. Leto's got a good jump on the Minardi. And as they fly down towards the first corner, looks as though we've already got a few jostling of positions. As the cars are coming through, the Zach Speeds are trying to break past Giacomelli. Oh, and McNish has gone already. Dear oh dear, a big shot, and it's Alan McNish in the life at the first corner. We'll have to look back and see how that happened. But Alan McNish was trying to dice away there into the first corner. Has he made the mistake? Oh, he's been hit there by the Eurobrun of Juan Fangio II. That is very bad move there from the Argentine.
It was, and McNish was an innocent bystander there. Juan Fangio the second had, well, it was quite a clumsy manoeuvre, if I'm honest with you, especially when he was at the back of the field and not really going to make that much ground into turn one. But yeah, that's one of the live cars gone already. Christian Fittipaldi is still in there, but so far not a good start for the race for the live team. And this is Ginzani down the inside of his teammate Winkelhock.
So the Zach Speeds are swapping places early doors. They've put a massive amount of investment into power for this part of the season because they knew that we would have Paul Ricard in France, and of course in 2 races time we also have Hockenheim in Germany. So all of those teams that have been able to invest big on horsepower will certainly have the 1-lap pace, but those who didn't invest in reliability could find themselves with a major hammer blow in terms of getting to the ends of the races themselves. That's the big key factor. You've got to balance a nice blend of power and reliability because there's no point being the fastest cars on the race circuit if you can't make it to the checkered flag. Giacomelli running well in the Lola at the start of the race. Winkelhock and Ginzani, they've got good horsepower, but they don't have a lot of reputation for being that reliable, the Zach Speed cars, but they are desperately trying to get into their first Grand Prix of the 1990 season. They've raced in Formula 1 before, but there are rumours that Zach Speed's position within Grand Prix racing is quite tenuous at the moment, and here is Ginzani trying to get past Joe Winkelhock, his German teammate. That did not work, and so Leto runs in 4th place ahead of Martini, Suzuki, Ribbs, Irvine, Brundle and Hill.
So Leto and Irvine up 2 places each from their grid positions. Damon Hill up 4 places from 14th to 10th. So a great start for the Dallara driver. Johnny Herbert's in 16th position. Can't quite tell if he's made up positions from his starting position. I'll just quickly have a look. He's down a position from his starting position, is Johnny Herbert. So whilst Damon Hill is climbing, Johnny Herbert's going back a little bit, but there's still a long way to go yet in this pre-qualifying race here at Paul Ricard as Giacomelli continues to pull away from the Zach Speeds.
And here's Schumacher making his bid on Ukyo Katayama in the Coloni. So the Reynard trying to come through. Looks as though we've got Johnny Herbert making a move as well. So the Reynard trying to come forward with the superior horsepower of the Renault engine really telling there. So Schumacher tries to get the move on Katayama. It doesn't work in the end, actually. The Japanese is able to shut the door at the end of the straight, but Schumacher dives back again on the inside, and Katayama is not letting young Michael Schumacher, just 20 years of age, going to be 21 years of age, I should say, very young indeed. But one of the stars of the future, and definitely quite a few teams have their eye on him as the season progresses. Here's Ukyo Katayama, another man who a lot of people are keeping an eye on, as Bruno Giacomelli bangs in another fast lap up front. And I wonder if Giacomelli's got a light fuel load. We'll have to keep an eye on the fuel loads, of course. Here's Dalmas battling away with his teammate Tarquini. And behind them are the Porsches. Now, it's unusual that the Porsches have been able to go so low down the grid in qualifying. They just didn't have massive 1-lap pace, but they might be able to counteract it with A, reliability, and B, with good strategy as Warwick gets past. No problem at all there to go past Gabriele Tarquini. And Paul Warwick, who qualified last time out, that's why he's on a light fuel strategy. So Warwick is trying to make up for lost time in the Porsche.
So I wonder if the Porsche team, who have sacrificed some single lap pace for this particular pre-qualifying event. I mean, like you say, they qualified for the first time last time out in Mexico City, but they've got their work cut out with both Warwick and Menu outside the top 20. So they've got a lot of work to do in what is just quite a short race here. And it's a fast circuit, it's Paul Ricard, with these fast straights, as Martini dives down the inside of Suzuki, but Suzuki had enough ground to shut the door, and he locked up a little bit there, did Suzuki. I wonder if they made contact into that right-hander.
Well, it's worth having a look back again. Martini has a look on the inside. Was there contact? Oh, just the mildest tap. Just a love tap at best. That could lead to a puncture for Aguri Suzuki. They've got to be so careful on those tyres. But Ginzani there running in behind Winkelhock as they head into the next lap. This will be lap 4 coming up, but the Zach Speeds are finally having their turn towards the front. Team boss Mike Pittman will be delighted with that, of course. They've not had much of an opportunity to run towards the front. They've really struggled, and the cars are not reliable with their Yamaha engine. They're powerful, but they're not as reliable as they'd like to be. And this is a long-term program for the Japanese bike manufacturer. They really want to make their Formula 1 engine go much quicker, and certainly with a lot more reliability as things continue for them. So the battles are going to be very interesting to observe. Here comes Brundle, making his bid on the inside of Irvine, and he can't make it stick. Brundle not having the best of races either compared to what we've seen from him, but then I wonder how much of his current performance is still very much embedded in the fact that he rather disgraced himself, if you remember, at Mexico when he was leading the pre-qualifying race, Tom, and he threw it all away. I wonder if there's just a little bit of nerves creeping in as a result of that.
Indeed, and just looking at the Zach Speed says Ginzani has another go at Winkelhock. The Yamaha engines proving to be the engines to have here at Paul Ricard, whilst Mike Pittman's watching his boys battling. Carter McColeman's Lola team are doing very well once again in 1st and 5th, with Giacomelli stagnating that gap at the moment. It was 9/10 a lap ago through Sector 2, and at the moment it's gone back up again to 1.5 seconds. So Giacomelli looking somewhat content at the front, but there's still a long way to go yet. JJ Leto doing well in 4th position.
So the battle continues. The Zach Speed's going well. So we've got Ginzani in 3rd position. A lot of changes to the form book in pre-qualifying since the last performance upgrade. Quite a few teams deciding to go all hell for leather on power, which is great for the first few laps, but whether they'll make it to the end of the race or not is a very different matter. And after 4 laps, there's only 15 seconds covering the 15 cars up front, because there's a lot of slipstreaming opportunities as Winkelhock has got Ginzani up the inside again, and this time Ginzani does get the move. So Ginzani goes up into 2nd place, and he's only recently announced, Piercarlo Ginzani, that he is going to retire from Grand Prix racing at the end of 1990. He's really struggled to get the Zach Speed up to speed, but it's almost as if the pressure of him announcing that he's not going to be racing next year, it's taken the pressure off a little bit, and he can now enjoy himself out there in 2nd place.
I'm sure he'll want to go out on a high, will Ginzani. He's got by Winkelhock at a particular area of the circuit he wouldn't have thought he would get by. And this is Eric Bernal in the Monteverdi, making a move on Ukyo Katayama. Now, don't know whether he's got that horsepower advantage that he needs to get the high ground into the right-hander here as he completes it on Katayama. No, Katayama's got enough momentum to keep his nose in front.
So there is Piercarlo Ginzani upholding the honour for Zach Speed. Here's Mark Blundell having a go at his own teammate, Alessandro Zanardi, and it doesn't quite work out. So Zanardi has to hold position, and the Ocellas that are really struggling for 1 lap pace here at Paul Ricard, although Silverstone and Hockenheim coming up next means that the next few races could be tricky for those who invested purely in power, because obviously they'll run towards the front end of the field, but will they make it to the flag? That's the key differentiation. Here comes Suzuki on the inside of JJ Leto. He's got a good run out of the final turn and sweeps by, and Brundle's in the pits. So Brundle is in the pits very early doors. What is the reason for that? He's got an electrical problem. More difficulties at Minardi then, Tom.
Not so good news for Michael Gillespie's team, because Brundle had the issue in Mexico where he pushed too hard and went off the circuit and threw it away, and repeated the same mistake in the main race after the Minardi team qualified. And his run of misfortune has struck again for the Brits, and he's got his work cut out, and he's got to hope that his teammate Pierluigi Martini stays in it. He's only a second behind JJ Leto, and as it stands at the moment, Martini would need to pass Leto in order for the Minardi team to get into the Grand Prix, and it doesn't look as though it's heading that way, because Willie T. Ribbs is down the inside of it, and he's got the move done before the corner.
Very nice work indeed from the rising American. He's doing a fantastic job at the moment behind the wheel, is Willie T. Ribbs. He really does seem to have fit the mould of the 1990 Grand Prix trend, and he's turning into a bit of a star of the future. Azuki Katayama continues to battle there with Eric Bernard in the Monteverdi. And that's a big mistake from Giacomelli. Did you hear that? He seemed to miss a shift there. I wonder if he's got a gearbox problem developing.
It could just be that he took a bit too much speed into the left-hander there, Jake. But needn't to worry at the moment. I mean, the Lolas are very much coming to their prime now, because Suzuki getting by later and he's going to be closing in shortly on the Zach speed. And this is Irvine down the inside of Martini. So going from bad to worse for the Minardi. And this is Willie T. Ribbs in trouble. What a shame there for the American.
And Damon Hill's nudged him. Damon Hill's nudged him into a spin there, and he comes straight back on the road in front of the rest of the field. But he's got a puncture. That's why Willie T. Ribbs is out of the race. But the car has come to a standstill. That a marshal's got to get onto the circuit. Let's look again. Damon Hill just comes around completely unsighted there onto Willie T. Ribbs. How on earth did the Monteverdi of Eric Bernard miss him? That is so close. That was a very near miss there indeed. But Damon Hill, look, he strikes the back of Willie T. Ribbs' car. But look how close Bernard came to hitting his car as well. Very tight stuff there indeed, Tom.
I wonder if Damon Hill will have the book thrown at him for that, because that was quite a clumsy manoeuvre in the circumstances. And Willie T. Ribbs was so lucky not to get collected by the Monteverdi of Eric Bernard as he rejoined the circuit. And Willie T. Ribbs will be saying to, I don't know if he is a religious person, but he'll be so relieved that he was not run into the back by the Monteverdi as he rejoined the circuit. So that's not good news for the Monteverdi team. And Willie T. Ribbs is the second driver to pull out of this pre-qualifying race. So, not good news there, Jake.
Wow. A very difficult start to the race then, and we've been told by race control that both Fangio II and Hill are under investigation by the stewards. So that is not great news from their point of view, because obviously they wanted to get through without major discrepancies, major difficulties. So they are out of luck at the moment. So Giacomelli leads the way. Ginzani, Winkelhock, Suzuki, Leto, Irvine is the order at the moment. So Monteverdi are looking likely to get through, as are Zach Speed. That'll be the first time that Zach Speed ever get through if they stay there. There's Martin Brundle having had his pit stop. And he's fueled to the end of the race, Tom. Now, this is counterproductive because it means he's had his one stop. And on fresh tyres, he can go hell for leather. But he's got a heavy fuel load. By the time everybody else has made their pit stops, he'll be on very old tyres. So he could make a gain, but he's really going to struggle for grip. And that's Martin Donnelly. Martin Donnelly's first race in the Eurobrun. He's been rested by the Lotus team. And he was given the chance to race for Eurobrun. But unfortunately, a mechanical problem has put him out of the race in the Eurobrun. So Martin Donnelly, a very frustrating day at the office for the Irishman.
Not a very good Eurobrun baptism for Donnelly. He'll be hoping for a better lot there than he had done. And Schumacher's in trouble.
Well, that is not great news at Reynard. They've still got an unreliable car, it seems, and the two Ocellas are going to fly past. There's Michael Schumacher in a plume of white smoke. Billows down the back straight. And I'm afraid it is definitely not good news for the Reynard team as Michael Schumacher's car finally crawls to a standstill. And he is going to pull off at the end of the straight. But I'm afraid the young German, who is on the watch list of many teams, including the likes of Zach Speed and Porsche for next season. Oh, and he's been hit in the back there by Dalmas. Dalmas has gone clean into the back of Schumacher's car.
What on earth happened there? I mean, Schumacher just, travelled around the circuit with an ailing car, and Dalmas, it just looked as though he didn't quite see him in time. I mean, he was kind of blinded by the Porsche in front of him. He just had not enough time to react to the Reynard and just ploughed into the back of Schumacher.
Well,
how bizarre was that?
It's a very difficult manoeuvre to call as well. I wouldn't want to be the stewards in the office for that one. Bang! Just ploughs straight into the back of Schumacher. Now Schumacher, I wonder if he's okay, because that was a fairly hefty clout in the back of his car there as well. So the Reynard driver could be in some difficulty here as well now, of course, because that was a heavy clout. Let's watch again. Back of the car takes a massive hammer blow from Dalmas. Look, he's just been pitched straight into the wall. That is a big incident.
It's a very, very big incident, and if the stewards didn't have enough investigations in their back pocket, well, they may well just have another one to deal with as Schumacher gets craned away by the marshals, as does Dalmas's car. And there's another driver in trouble. Who's that? That's one of the Sack Speed.
I assumed it was going to happen at some point. Ghinzani's in trouble. There you go. 9 laps in, and they've got brilliant horsepower in this Sack Speed, but reliability is still not there yet, and Ghinzani is pulling to a close. This is what frustrated the Italian since the start of the year, and unfortunately, their dreams are over for Ghinzani. Winkelhock is still going, but for how much longer can he hope to last?
Well, he's got to hope it'll last more than 8 laps. Well, get it to the end of the race after 27, and, well, Mike Pittman will be saying his prayers now. He'll be saying to Winkelhock, just don't take too much life out of the engine. And if Suzuki gets past him, it won't be bad news, because there's already one Lola in front. And who's that in trouble? What manufacturer the second's in trouble now in the Eurobron?
Well, there go both the Eurobruns. This is a race full of attrition already. This long configuration with the big back straight. It's killing cars by the look of it, because Fangio is now in trouble. Fangio II, the nephew of the 5-time world champion Juan Manuel Fangio, the legend of the 50s. Unfortunately for Juan Fangio II, it's game over, and the car in a plume of smoke, billowing flames. The Eurobrun race doesn't even go the full 9 laps of the race that we are currently up to, and that is such a shame for both Donnelly and Fangio. And of course, Fangio is under investigation by race control for his incident with Alan McNish on the opening lap, so it's bad to worse. Is Giacomelli in trouble now?
Giacomelli dropping back. Yes, he is.
Oh, engine failure for Giacomelli, the race leader in trouble. There it is. Giacomelli is out. Winkelhock goes through. So does Suzuki and Leto. So, leading the race means nothing. You've got to cross the line in first. And Bruno Giacomelli is out of the race from the lead.
So we've lost the top 2 in a space of just over a lap. How crazy of a race we have had already. And Joachim Winkelhock in the Sack Speed leads the pre-qualifying race, and this is the battle of the Assessors. They've been battling since the race started, and Sonali just keeping his nose there in front of Blundell. But what a crazy race. I mean, is that 8 retirements we've had already in this race or something, Jake?
I think it is.
Yeah, wow.
It is, yes. We've had McNish, we've had Ribbs, Donnelly, Dalmas, Schumacher, Ghinzani, Fangio II and Giacomelli, all within the space of just the first 9 laps around. And, well, how many are going to get to the end of the race? If only 3 get home, it doesn't matter, as long as there are only 3 teams in it. But, a crazy, crazy race thus far. It looks as though it's still going to be LaRousse Lola that get through. But they're going to have to go to the reserve engine for Giacomelli, because his engine has failed. So they're going to hope that the spare engine, if they get through, of course, because Suzuki is currently second, but if he doesn't finish the race either, then LaRousse Lola will, for once, because they've been very consistent at getting through and have actually scored 17 championship points in the main races over the course of the season. They're 9th in the Constructors' Championship at present, ahead of Ferrari, which is a very rare thing to be able to say. But here's Suzuki making his bid for Winkelhock. And he's through! Beautiful move from the Japanese. That was such a brave maneuver. We've got to watch that one again. That was a very tough move to pull off. He's gone through the first corner, followed in behind Winkelhock, and he sails up the inside, Tom.
And it was a fantastic manoeuvre there from Suzuki, and he's put himself back into potential contention for another pre-qualifying race victory. And whilst we are talking about the World Championship or the race in itself, the fact that Giacomelli is out, that could hand the lead in the GoBobby.UK Car Drivers' Championship to Pierluigi Martini, because before the race started, he was a point behind Giacomelli. And with the race as it's going at the moment, with Martini still running, unlike Giacomelli, Martini will end up in the lead of the championship in the GoBobby.UK Cup.
It's a very good point. Suzuki leads the way. Winkelhock second from Leto, Irvine, Martini, Hill, Bernard, Katayama, Ratzenberger and Herbert. And, well, fascinating situation. Here's Paul Warwick making his bid on the inside of Gabriele Tarquini. The Porsche just doesn't quite have the grunt down the straight yet. it's certainly consistent. The thing that Porsche have done this year is they've built a really good, solid chassis. They've built a good car that works quite mechanically in terms of grip. And they're able to be pretty fast everywhere, but in a straight line at the moment. So on the circuits where they've really had a good advantage, don't forget they had a good upgrade last time. They didn't run in the top 3 until the very end of the race at Mexico, because again, their car is very strong and resilient. As into the pits comes Bernard. Now, is that strategy? Yes, it is. That is a strategic pit stop. The first pit stop of the race then, essentially, for Eric Bernard. And Blundell is in as well.
Now, I wonder if Bernard and Blundell's strategies here could pay off. Will the undercut prove to be the decisive factor over the course of the weekend? It may well do. And I'm sure Martin Brundle will go past Bernard by the time he rejoins the circuit. Does he? Yes, he does. So Brundle's earlier pit stop may have worked, but he's going to be on all the tyres than Bernard. But do keep an eye on Bernard's pace as the race goes on. But he's going to be in quite a lot of traffic, so that could not be on Bernard's side, as the Porsches are battling there with what looks like Gabriele Tarquini.
So the Porsches are trying to give the AGS a major hammer blow here. They are able to get quite close in terms of slipstream. We've got an Osella in trouble further back. There's an Osella down the road in trouble. It's Blundell. Blundell's got a problem. That's a shame. He's just had a pit stop. So he's literally just come out of the pits and the engine has blown for Mark Blundell. So that puts one of the 2 Lego Osellas out of the race. It's just down to Zanardi now.
Yeah, and Blundell, it's strange that he's only just pitted and that engine's been going just now, and at least he won't hold up any drivers, unlike what happened with Schumacher and Dalmas earlier. But yeah, that's not good news for Ed Hunter's team. Damon Hill's in the pits now for the Dallara team.
Well, Blundell's out of it, and I'm afraid that's not going to help him out at all. So a very difficult situation, but Mark Blundell's engine is gone. So it's time now to figure out whether the car can go the distance for Zanardi. And into the pits as well comes the Italian. So the Osellas were only pitting a lap after each other. Warwick's Porsche comes in as well. Very early, actually, for Warwick. Now, I think that's tactical as well, so that they can try and leapfrog a few drivers through the field. There is Warwick, down to 17th. He will drop to the back of the field because there are only 17 runners left. But again, this is quite strategic, I think, for Porsche, because they know that all they've got to do is get through in the top 3 teams across the line, and a lot of teams are running out of juice in terms of the performance of the cars here at Paul Ricard. Bodes well for the Grand Prix later, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. And as I was saying, with the undercut, that could be something to look out for in the race, as Suzuki maintains the lead at the moment over Winkelhock, and this is Tarquini seemingly about to lose a place to Alain Menu.
So Menu still doing a good job when he gets the opportunity in the Porsche. Up into the top 10 goes Alain Menu. Good drive from the Swiss. And that will give Porsche something to smile about as the race continues here. We're at the halfway point exactly now. Lap 14 of 27. So this is the half distance lap of the race. And there's Suzuki running a solid race. JJ Leto going well in 3rd place. He's finally got some confidence now in the Monteverdi. But these cars have completely outclassed Minardi, haven't they? They've just not had the pace this time here in Paul Ricard. They've got good, solid consistency, but it's not going too well from their point of view.
I wouldn't count your chickens just yet, Jay, because there's still quite some way to go. And with the attrition, and Zanardi's gone.
Are you kidding? That's 2 Osellas. He's got a gearbox problem straight out of the pit lane. So the Osellas have both had pit stops and both had car failures as they have exited the pit lane.
It's a very weird one because Blundell's engine went on the outlap after his pit stop. Now, was it a sticking wheel nut or something, or was it more something internal than that? But that is really bad news for Ed Hunter, and Bernard goes around the outside there, and Paul Warwick pulls to the side.
Wow, that's such a shame, because I think Porsche had a good idea there in terms of their strategy, but the Porsche's not quite bulletproof yet. But certainly Mexico will give them plenty of things to be happy about, but unfortunately for them, it's not to be for Paul Warwick. It could still happen for Menu. He's made his pit stop, and he will fall to the back of the field, but that's only 15th position at the moment. Wow. Joe Winkelhock in 2nd place, still trying to hustle Aguri Suzuki. But the Lola LaRousse is still going, but there's only 15 cars running. And into the pits comes Suzuki, so he makes his pit stop. And into 10th place comes Damon Hill on the inside of Brundle, or does he? Brundle holds it round the outside. Good bit of racecraft there from Martin Brundle.
Indeed, and there's a 4-car battle going on behind now. There's Brundle, Hill, Bernard and Tarquini. Now, could any of them come into play in terms of getting into the Grand Prix later? With the race going as it is at the moment, who knows? On Bernard, is that him in shot? Oh, no.
Yeah, it's Eric Bernard. Well, he was going well in the Monteverdi. To be fair, this time the team look like they've got two very strong drivers. But for Bernard, another engine failure for the team. And that's a really disappointing way for Eric Bernard to retire on home soil. So now there's only 14 cars running in this pre-qualifying race. This is astonishing. A lot of teams did make reliability upgrades, but for some reason, Paul Ricard is just killing cars.
So, and it's not a good omen for Bernard's teammate, JJ Leto, or for David Young, because Leto is now in second place with Suzuki coming in for his mandatory pit stop, and Fittipaldi's also come into the pits in the life, so he'll rejoin at the back of the field. But you know, it's the, I can't remember who it is that says survival of the fittest. Was it Charles Darwin?
I think it might have been.
Yeah. So it's pretty much, that could be the belief. You know, survival of the fittest today here in Paul Ricard.
How about this for a turn up for the books? The man in 9th place through all of this is Mike Thackwell. Welcome back to the midfield, because he's never really had brilliant races over the course of this year, other than back in Brazil, if you remember, when his teammate Katayama helped him to get into the Grand Prix, his first Grand Prix since 1982, by the way. And Irvine now pits in the Real from the top 5, but Martini now finds himself in 3rd. That is courtesy, of course, of Suzuki's pit stop. Suzuki rejoined a good 17, 18 seconds in front of Brundle. So that goes to it gives you an idea. You know, the Minardi is not really having the race it wants at the moment. They're doing the best they can with it, but they're just not able to get close up behind the Monteverdi, which has thrown all of its money on horsepower this time, as of course has the Zaxpeed. So two teams there that just decided they wanted to throw all the money in the world on their cars to go forward. But again, it's no guarantee that they'll get to the finish. But Bernard has not, nor have Paul Warwick in the Porsche, Zanardi and Blundell in the Ocellas, Giacomelli in the LaRousse Lola while leading, Fangio in the Eurobrun, Ginzani in the Zaxpeed while in second, Schumacher's Reynard, Dalmas, who went into the back of him, Donnelly in the Eurobrun, Ribbs in the Real with a puncture for him, and he was hit by Damon Hill into a spin. And then Alan McNish was hit off at the very first corner. Leto in the pits from P2. So this is a critical pit stop because he's not going to have to put a massive amount of fuel in to get to the end.
Martini's in the pits as well, so it'll be a battle of the pit crews between Monteverdi and Minardi, the two M's, and Ratzenberger's in the pits for Reynard. So the three drivers coming in, and Leto comes out, no problem at all. With a 9.9 second stop. Where will he rejoin? He'll be behind Suzuki, and he should be ahead of Irvine.
Now Herbert has got quite a long way still to go into this stint. Oh, he almost pushed it straight off the track there, Johnny Herbert. Pushing hard to bring the Converse Stellara back into the mix, as Thackwell pits in as well, too does Tarquini. So we could see quite a few teams in the top 10 that didn't have any reason to think they would be finishing there. Katayama running in second place ahead of Herbert, Suzuki, Leto, Martini, Irvine, Hill, Brundle and Ratzenberger now. With Martini having pitted, so too has Ratzenberger, Thackwell and Tarquini. Menu has already pitted, as has Christian Fittipaldi. So Menu gets out in 12th place, and he's going to overtake Thackwell's Coloni into the first corner, I do believe. No, he's not, because Thackwell's not going to give him the space. So Thackwell having made his pit stop, Menu's now going to hustle him for 11th place. But that could be another point in the Go Bobbert UK Cup from their point of view. And as long as they get a Porsche to the finish, that's more prize money as well. Winkelhock pits in from the lead, though. So this is the important pit stop for Joe Winkelhock and the Zaxpeed team. And I'm fairly sure this is one of the first pit stops that the team has actually had all season long. Oh, and he's had to wait. He's had to wait, look, for Katayama.
Yeah, that's not ideal there for Winkelhock, and Suzuki should plough his way past into the lead, or effectively into the lead, once Johnny Herbert comes in for his stop. But yeah, Suzuki is ahead of Winkelhock, crucially. Winkelhock rejoins just ahead of JJ Leto. Now, these two are most definitely going to be battling to the end.
So that was fortunate for Winkelhock. He almost lost the lead of the race there. He almost lost the battle for second. I don't think the lead was on there for Suzuki because he had built up too much of an advantage before the pit stop. But he almost lost out there to JJ Leto. He was lucky there that he managed to get out just a few car lengths in front. Johnny Herbert leads the race, although he does have a pit stop to make. So that'll be very interesting as we head into the continuing battle. And across they come once again. So the battle goes through the right-hander. Suzuki still trying to make chase on Johnny Herbert. Doesn't even have to overtake him at this point. And Herbert is actually coming into the pits. So Herbert will be in on this lap. So he can be patient here. And Suzuki can just sit in behind Johnny Herbert and wait until the British driver peels off and into the pit lane. Although he's getting in danger of being held up by him a little bit here. At the converse rear wing. He'll obviously want to light-foot it into the pits quick, Johnny Herbert, because he doesn't want to spend too much time in the traffic. He dives into the pits. It's a late move to dive into the pits from Johnny Herbert. Almost as if he didn't get the call to come in.
No, it's not a very unique pit entry here in Paul Ricard. If you've got another driver alongside you on the right-hand side, you can end up collecting a driver and, well, goodness knows what could happen from there. Now, can Johnny Herbert get another good result for the Dallara team? His teammate Damon Hill is also still in the race. Damon Hill, in fact, has gone past Herbert, as has Ratzenberger and Brundle. But he should comfortably rejoin ahead of Thackwell, so should be no problem there for Johnny Herbert. Keep an eye on his lap times as well, because he'll have been the last of the drivers to pit in, so he'll be on fresher rubber.
That's a very good point. Good spot. And he'll be on a light fuel load too, so Herbert should be flying around this lap very, very quickly. He could catch and pass the likes of Brundle, Ratzenberger, Hill, possibly even Katayama before the end of the race is out. Suzuki leads the way though, and despite his teammate retiring from the lead earlier on, he does still have a good chance here of sealing the deal with Suzuki coming through 5 seconds clear thus far of Winkelhock as Menu pushes very hard trying to get on terms with Thackwell. Thackwell has shown him a clean pair of heels in the first couple of outlaps. So the Porsche continues, but Thackwell in the Coloni is keeping him at bay for the moment.
So Suzuki leads in the Larus Lola, then it's the Zach Speed of Winkelhock, then Monteverdi of Leto, the Minardi of Martini, and followed by is it the Real of Eddie Irvine?
It is, yeah.
And then it's the Coloni of Katayama in sixth ahead of Damon Hill in the Dallara, then it's Ratzenberger in the Reynard, then Brundle in Minardi and Herbert in the Dallara rounding out the top 10.
Well, Menu's still battling, this time with Tarquini, and the AGS flies by. So the AGS goes through. Maybe some handling difficulties here at Paul Ricard for the Porsche. It's not been the perfect race for them, but hopefully they can still get their car to the finish, while others could well falter. We're on lap 20 of 27. 8 laps to go then. But there's no guarantee that one of the 3 teams that are in the top 3 at present are still going to be there when the checkered flag falls. You've got to go the distance of this pre-qualifying race and be one of the top 3 teams over the line in order to get the job done. It's Aguri Suzuki leading in the Lola Larus. Then it is Winkelhock in the Zach Speed Yamaha, and they are crossing everything, as are Monteverdi in 3rd place, because it will only be the 2nd time that Monteverdi has ever managed to qualify for a race this year. It'll be the 1st if Zach Speed managed to. And then there will be only 2 other teams as yet that have failed to qualify for the Grand Prix. And they are Reynard, who have not had the reliability to get there, and AGS for very similar reasons. All the other teams in pre-qualifying have managed to get into a Grand Prix at least once. So for Zach Speed, AGS and Reynard, the battle continues as they all bid to get there into the Grand Prix. Reynard came bitterly close at Imola. Oh, Damon Hill's gone off! Damon Hill's gone off! Now that is not good news from his point of view. We'll have to look again at that incident. So Damon Hill comes through up to the right-hander. Oh, he's just overshot, look.
Yeah, that was very strange. I think we've seen a few drivers sort of overdo it in that particular part of the racetrack, and Damon Hill just pushed a bit too hard there, and he's lost a couple of positions already. He's lost 3 positions, in fact. And so, yeah, that's not very good news there for Damon Hill, who rejoins behind his teammate Johnny Herbert in 10th place. But that's given Reynard a bit of a boost as well, because Ratzenberger, who is the only driver running for the team in this race, as Michael Schumacher had already dropped out. Reynard are a place closer to qualifying for the main Grand Prix, but they need to, at the moment as it stands, finish in the top 3 in this race in order to change that statistic.
So the battle continues as Suzuki is desperately trying to get the car home over the line. JJ Leto running in 3rd position behind Joe Winkelhock. And they are all crossing their fingers now because these cars are within a stone's throw of qualifying for the French Grand Prix. Obviously, the first 3 cars across the line. It's Suzuki going off! Suzuki, the race leader, goes off, and that's his own mistake. It's a mistake from Suzuki. Looks like there's nothing wrong with the car. The Japanese driver just pushing too hard.
That is such a costly mistake there from Suzuki. Don't know what to say. That is so costly as well. And Winkelhock is through into the lead for the sack speed. But if you are Carlton McCollum, you will be hammering your head against your desktop. That is absolutely shocking to see there from Suzuki. And he's only got himself to blame. There was nothing wrong with the car going into the hairpin. And he's down to, 6th place now, and he's got an awful lot of work to do with only 6 laps to go at the end of this, after this lap.
Wow, that is an absolutely disastrous situation for Lola LaRousse. Down to 6th position now, and it gives Zach Speed back the lead of this thrilling pre-qualifier. Monteverde are now 2nd with JJ Leto, and look who's in 3rd. The Minardi is indeed there after all. They just know how to get their car into a good position.
And Michael Gillespie will be smiling within himself that Pierluigi Martini has gotten to 3rd position behind Leto. Don't discount Eddie Irvine as well, because Real, who are, of course, have already qualified for a Grand Prix. I think it's Eddie Irvine's only his 2nd entry into Formula 1, and he could be on the brink of qualifying for the main race should something happen to Winkelhock, Leto or Martini ahead of him.
Right, we've just been told that there is a penalty being handed out, and it is for Damon Hill in the Dallara, and it's for his incident with Willie T. Ribbs, if you remember. So that incident with Willie T. Ribbs where he ended up nudging him off the circuit, essentially, as he was all ready to retire, but he caused a very nasty accident where Willie T. Ribbs was very nearly ploughed into the back of another car. Somehow they avoided it, but Damon Hill has been given a 30-second time penalty, which will be added onto his race at the end of the completed distance. So Damon Hill will have 30 seconds added onto his race time. That could drop him out of the top 10 very easily now, as Tarquini comes through behind Thackwell, trying to make his bid into 11th place, as the AGS is still trying to get to as many race finishes as it possibly can. Big dive up the inside for Tarquini, and Thackwell's gone off there now!
God, what is it about that hairpin where drivers are keep going off? I mean,
there's got to be oil down. There's got to be oil down, because it's happened a couple of times now. And so Thackwell will rejoin at the back, but there's got to have been maybe something left over from the Dalmas Schumacher incident.
That was, well, possibly, and that was the corner before that happened that saw that collision. But we've seen drivers like Eric Bernard and Paul Warwick leave oil down at that part of the circuit. That could be what caught Mike Thackwell out there. But yeah, what is it about that corner? It's almost like the drivers just don't know where to brake at that particular area of the Paul Ricard circuit.
It is a very tough corner to get right, that one, because you're desperately trying to nail the apex, and it's not easy to get that corner sussed out, because especially when the tyres start fading as well, because when the tyres start to lose grip, you're actually having to brake a tiny bit earlier than where you were before.
And just looking at Damon Hill at the moment, as you've mentioned, his 30-second time penalty, it may drop him out of the top 10, but maybe only as far as 11th, because if you look at the gap at the moment between Damon Hill and Alan Menu, it's only 28 seconds, and with Damon Hill playing out a very huge gap, and considering the horsepower difference in the Dallara compared to the Porsche in this race, of course the AGS as well, it could be that Damon Hill maintains his 10th position.
Yeah, you're right. He might just be able to make that work. His teammate has already gone scampering up the road in search of Roland Ratzenberger. But I think the Reynard has actually got good legs on the Dallara at the moment. Here's Damon Hill, really struggling, and of course he will have been told probably by the team on the newfangled radio systems they've got that a 30-second penalty has been added to his race time. So essentially he's got to push for it because Tarquini is currently going to move up to 10th place. Menu is set to move up. I think Leto's in trouble. Oh no! JJ Leto crawling to a standstill in the Monteverde. They are not going to qualify. What a shame. What a shame. 4 laps from home.
I don't know what to say. I mean, didn't I say before about the omen of the other Monteverde driver retiring, that it could be an omen to Leto? It may have been another team, but what a appalling lot there for JJ Leto. He did everything right in this race, and if that's not cruel to me, then I don't know what is.
Well, that hands third position over to Real now, behind the Minardi of Pierluigi Martini. So Winkelhock still leads in the Zach Speed, desperately hoping that car gets to the flag. Martini in second now in the Minardi. Third place, the Real of Eddie Irvine. And Ukyo Katayama in the Coloni is 4th place. Suzuki is in 5th place. Ratzenberger in the Reynard in 6th. Ahead of Johnny Herbert in the Dallara. Brundle in his Minardi. Damon Hill in his Dallara. And in 10th place is the AGS of Tarquini. Just 5 seconds in front of Alain Menu. And if Menu keeps pushing, then Hill is going to be demoted down to 11th position. Here's Irvine. And he's not out of the woods yet in the Real because he's got pressure from behind him in the shape of the Japanese star Ukyo Katayama. Now, he is a pre-qualifying race winner earlier from the season. You remember how he got the job done in Brazil. But Irvine is still hoping to get into his first Grand Prix. He hasn't quite managed to do so yet, as far as I'm aware. So Eddie Irvine's still pushing for it, and he's in 3rd place. So all is going well at the moment. But Winkelhock is about to come through with 2 laps remaining. And the whole Zach Speed team are just praying that they're going to get this car home, because they invested all their money in horsepower to try and get the cars towards the front end of the field and out of trouble. But they haven't really done a massive amount of work on the overall balance and handling and the reliability and sustainability of the car. So they're basically on a wing and a prayer up front in the hope that they can get through. I really hope they do. It'd be nice to see a new team go into the Grand Prix for a change.
Of course, and another thing to add on that is, will they be able to get to the end of the main race should they qualify? I think that's another thing to take into consideration there, because that's where the real prize money gets handed out if you finish a Grand Prix, never mind the pre-qualifying event. It would be fantastic for the Zach Speed team to qualify for their first race of 1990. And Damon Hill in 9th position now. He hasn't got enough of a margin over, and that's Fittipaldi going wide, and he spins.
Well, that's a slightly different part of the circuit for Fittipaldi. I'm not sure what his theory for that's going to be, but that drops him to the back because Thackwell has now gone through and overtaken him. And Irvine this is a big one. This is Irvine versus Katayama for the final place in the Grand Prix. This is Real versus Coloni. This is Irvine versus Katayama for who is going to be in the French Grand Prix. Oh, and Katayama's got a problem. Well, that solves it. That solves it, I'm afraid. And the Coloni is out of luck.
That's really annoying there for the Coloni team, and it puts Suzuki back into 4th place. Now, if another car drops out ahead of him, that would put Luis Lola back into the main race grid for today. And the fire, I mean, he needs to pull that over now.
He really does, to be fair, because that car is absolutely ablaze now. He's got to pull that off the road, and I think he's just desperately trying to get it to the finish because they're on the last lap, don't forget. They've just started the last lap, so Katayama is essentially trying to get the car home to the finish, but no, there you go, the engine's gone, and that's it, unfortunately, for Katayama. I know exactly what they were trying to do, but I'm afraid Katayama is out of the race now in the Coloni, and that's devastating bad luck for them. Ratzenberger is now promoted to 5th place in all of this as well. So Ratzenberger and the Reynard team are not a million miles away from qualification. And it looks like we're only going to have 12 cars running at the end of this crazy race. There's Tarquini going through, and he will take 9th place away from Katayama. Menu in the Porsche is going to take 10th place, so he'll take another point in the Go Bobbitt UK Cup. But how about this for a result, Tom? It is going to be victory for Zach Speed in incredible circumstances. They have not even come close yet to getting into the Grand Prix, but they've invested all of their money, all of their resources here for the French Grand Prix on power, and it's worked in their favour. Joachim Winkelhock is going to win the pre-qualifying race in the French Grand Prix. Amazing work for Zach Speed. That is a massive turnaround. In one race, they have turned their fortunes around. Martini is second for Minardi, and here comes Eddie Irvine in the Real. They will go through in third.
Indeed, and a fantastic result there for the Zach Speed team, who of course are managed by Mike Pittman, and he'll be absolutely delighted for his team to qualify for the first time this season. Well done to Michael Gillespie and the Minardi team getting through once again with Martini in second, and the Real team. Well, Real will be saying their prayers as Vinit Patel will be absolutely over the moon with that result. He's got an opportunity to do well in the main race, and only 12 cars will be finishing, which is one of the lowest we've had this season. I mean, we had quite a number last time out, but this is even lower than what it was in Mexico City, I believe.
It is indeed. Joe Winkelhock, Smoking Joe as he's known in the paddock. A fantastic result for him as he wins the pre-qualifying race here in Paul Ricard. And it's enough to get him into the French Grand Prix, along with his teammate Piercarlo Ghinzani, who was probably so dejected after his car spluttered to a halt. But now Piercarlo Ghinzani will race a Grand Prix in 1990. Now, interestingly, Dave Goddard brings up a good point. After the crash with Hill, will Willie T. Ribbs need a spare car for the main race? That is a very good point. We'll have to keep a look at it and figure it out. But now they've got a race on their hands to get the car ready. There's the result, though. Joe Winkelhock and Pierluigi Martini ahead of Eddie Irvine. And it's Zach Speed, Minardi and Real that get through to the main event. Aguri Suzuki in fourth from Roland Ratzenberger. A great finish for Reynard in fifth. Johnny Herbert sixth for Dallara. Seventh for Martin Brundle in the Minardi. Eighth for Damon Hill in the Dallara. Ninth is Gabriele Tarquini in the AGS. And Porsche come home again in 10th for Alain Menu. 11th is Mike Thackwell in the Coloni. 12th is Fittipaldi in the Life. 13th is Ukyo Katayama. He's classified despite retiring on the final lap. JJ Leto out with a gearbox failure. Eric Bernard similar. And then Warwick's Porsche. Zanardi and Blundell in the Tuacellas. Very unlucky this time. Giacomelli in the Lola from the lead. Juan Fangio II's Eurobrun. Ghinzani in the Zach Speed. The Reynard of Michael Schumacher was hit by Dalmas in the AGS, but his engine was failing regardless. Martin Donnelly in the Eurobrun. Willie T. Ribbs had a puncture as well. And then Alan McNish was hit off at the very start of the race, and that is being investigated. Joe Winkelhock, fastest lap of the race. The Zach Speed Yamaha, you have to say, their investment into power has definitely done them the business, but it's going to be a very interesting French Grand Prix as we have Zach Speed, Minardi and Real in the Grand Prix. Tom, that's a good result.
It's a very good result indeed. And just to correct you a little bit as well, Damon Hill's time penalty has dropped him from 8th to 9th, so Tarquini ends up in 8th retrospectively with Hill's penalty. Now, in case any of you have just tuned in as to why Damon Hill has got the penalty, it's for the collision with Willie T. Ribbs in the opening stages of the race that saw not only Willie T. Ribbs, I think Willie T. Ribbs was already retiring with a mechanical issue, but it was the manner of which Hill ran into the back of him that saw Willie T. Ribbs rejoin the circuit in a dangerous manner, but through no fault of Ribbs' own, but Hill's fault indeed. So Hill's down to 9th as a result of it. Tarquini is 8th in the AGS.
Now, the argument there could come in. Obviously, if a penalty is given, it can be protested, so we'll have to see whether Emma Featherstone is going to be able to mount a protest after the race, but certainly it is going to be a fabulous opportunity for Zach Speed, for Real and for Minardi. They will go through to the Grand Prix, which is next in about 5 minutes' time.
Ah, what music!
There is no terrible way to win. There is only winning.
We won't be out long.
Take your time. Track's all yours.
You ready? The name on the middle of that steering wheel should tell you that I was born ready. Hit it. Attaboy.
Let me drive. I will make a fool out of you.
I got a message for all of them. Shake and bake.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind?
That just happened.
These cars, you sit in a box, a coffin, gasoline all around you. It isn't like it being inside a bomb.
It's tough enough being a girl on the track. Living in my dad's shadow doesn't help much.
You have to be kind to the car. You feel the poor thing groaning underneath you.
No race was ever won in the first corner.
I'm going to give you an engine low to the ground, extra big oil pan will cut the wind from underneath you. That'll give you 30 to 40 more horsepower.
Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You do it because you're driven.
Brakes are warm. Tires are warm.
I'll work in the cars and I'll drive and I'll eat and sleep and I'll work in the cars and I'll drive.
Damn fast, and when he runs it close together, it requires fantastic concentration and rather special skills.
I was beginning to think I'd never be anything more than a piston-happy lead-foot punk. Then this starts to happen.
If you're going to push a piece of machinery to the limit and expect it to hold together, you have to have some sense of where that limit is.
Besides, the best drivers don't dwell on the future or the past. The best drivers focus only on the present.
They could never have imagined it, those pioneers who invented the automobile, that it would possess us like this in our imaginations, our dreams.
I'm gonna give you a fuel line that will hold an extra gallon of gas. I'm gonna shave half an inch off you and shape you like a bullet.
Somebody put it in your mind you gotta be perfect every time out or you're a failure. Well, forget that. Just forget it.
Racing is in my blood.
I was put on this earth to race cars.
I accept every time I get in my car. There's 20% chance I could die, and I can live with it, but not 1% more.
No, Nicky, don't bring the percentages into this. Don't be a pro. The minute you do that, you kill what's good about this. You kill the sport.
And at that speed, your reactions can barely keep up with these sudden changes in direction.
You ready to put away your toys and grow up?
You want me to work the pit and you drive? Fine, we'll try that.
The car's a living, breathing thing, and she's alive.
If any of us imagined, really imagined, what it would be like to go into a tree at 150 miles an hour, we would probably never get into the cars at all. None of us.
Are you ready to become a real race car driver?
I am just as good as anybody out there on that track, and I don't need anybody to win my races for me.
I wish my daddy were alive to see this, to feel this. And when we get you prime painted and weighed, you'll be ready to go out on that racetrack. You hear me? You're gonna be perfect.
You don't understand what happens, do you? They make 10,000 cars, they make them exactly the same way, and one or two of them turn out to be something special. Nobody knows why.
When I won it was probably the last time I ever felt pure victory.
So it has always seemed to me that to do something very dangerous requires a certain absence of imagination.
Because I'm quicker than all of you.
Soon you will know what it is like to be defeated by the hands of somebody who is truly better than you.
The only thing to do here is to drive just as fast as you know how and hope your car doesn't break.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
If you ain't first, you're last. There's 40 other vultures out there who managed to finish the race on their tires. You see Darrell Waltrip using up his tires?
There's nothing I can't do with a race car.
But hell, isn't that what we're in this for? To stare death in the face and to cheat it? Come on, there's nobility in that. It's like being knights.
Sometimes you could swear the whole thing's falling to bits.
No pressure, nobody breathing down my back, just driving because I left it pure.
On the other hand, I suppose potential problems are in the back of your mind all the time.
So in many ways, I feel responsible for what happened. And
You were, but trust me, watching you win those races while I was fighting for my life, you were equally responsible for getting me back in the car.
You're so lucky. Sit there all closed in by machinery and bolts, precise things. There's hardly any room for you. It must be a nice, safe feeling.
Yeah, you gotta learn to trust something. Might just as well be the seat of your pants.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Well, we can drive. We can drive beyond the limits of the tires, the engine, the car, anything else.
Look out there. Out there is the perfect lap. No mistakes. Every gear change, every corner. Perfect. You see it.
I just hope when you do, that I'm there to see it.
Ask any racer, any real racer. It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
But it isn't just business, is it? What we do, it's passion, love, which is why we're prepared to risk our lives for it.
Racing. That's the name of the game, isn't it? Win or lose, put up or shut up.
Why does everybody keep telling me what my problem is?
That you get so emotional.
You would never, ever say that to a guy.
If you don't leave your feelings off the track, you're never going to get what you want.
I'm a race driver, and I can win it on my own. Please let me race.
fine. Then let's race.
So drama at the Paul Ricard circuit as we now have Zach Speed, Minardi and Real into the main Grand Prix from pre-qualifying. But again, this is Paul Ricard, Tom, so any team that's invested heavily on their power upgrades are definitely going to see a fascinating one-lap pace, but will that be enough to transfer into a Grand Prix victory?
Well, from what we've seen in the pre-qualifying race earlier, Jake, it's going to be a matter of survival of the fittest because we saw two drivers who were in the top two in the race pull out with mechanical issues in the Go Bobby UK Cup event. So Could that be an omen for the race? Who knows? But the likes of Brabham, Williams and Tyrrell will hope that fortune will be on their side for today's event. And of course, the World Championship is very much up for grabs, with Gerhard Berger leading the way quite convincingly. But will he be able to withstand the Paul Ricard circuit? Because he didn't have the best of qualifying, Sid Berger, down in 11th. Whilst his teammate Ayrton Senna, with the penalty that he got from the last event in Mexico City, will be starting at the back. So McLaren have got their work cut out here in France.
They certainly do. So it's Brabham in pole position for Mika Hakkinen, and he lines up alongside Thierry Boutsen in the Williams on the second position spot of the grid. The second row is all Tyrrell, as the new boy, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, has actually out-qualified Jean Alesi, and that is definitely going to get tongues wagging at the Tyrrell team. Trouble in paradise, perhaps. Riccardo Patrese lines up 5th, alongside the Lotus of Derek Warwick going well. His new teammate, Andrea De Cesaris, is right up in there as well, in 7th on the grid. The Arrows of Adrian Fernandez is in 8th place. 9th for Nicola Larini in the Ligier, and then Mauricio Gugelmin in the Leighton House is next in 10th. Gerhard Berger in the McLaren can only manage 11th on the grid for this one, with Ivan Capelli in the Leighton House in 12th. Michele Alboreto is alongside Eddie Cheever, Arrows and Ligier. Then Prost and Morbidelli in the 2 Ferraris, only separated by 0.2 of a second. Good qualifying from Morbidelli, but the Ferraris are down on row 8. Stefano Modena in the 2nd. Brabham is way down in 17th. There'll be question marks about his job, I'm sure. Carl Wendlinger is in the leading Benetton after Nelson Piquet and Alessandro Nannini were both given one race bans. Piercarlo Ghinzani starts 19th then for Zakspeed. Jan Lammers in the 2nd. Benetton is 20th. Eddie Irvine in the Real is ahead of Pierluigi Martini. Martin Brundle is ahead of Willie T. Ribbs. And then it's Joachim Winkelhock, the pre-qualifying winner, who lines up on the back row alongside Ayrton Senna himself. This is going to be a fascinating race. Senna starting from the back of the grid, carrying a grid penalty from the last race after his incident at Mexico with Nigel Mansell at the start. So Senna will start the French Grand Prix from the back of the grid. Just how far can he make it up from 26th on the starting grid? The furthest back anyone's ever won from is 23rd. That was John Watson 7 years ago at Long Beach. Let's race at Paul Ricard as Mika Hakkinen gets a good start. The Tyrrells are there in 3rd and 4th, but it's Boutsen who's getting a great start in the Williams. He could well charge forward. Alesi's got the slipstream though, and he's trying to make his way forward. Frensen's making a good bid to the first corner as the field comes through. The Lotus goes wide and deep into the first turn, but Hakkinen leads the way from Boutsen. Frentzen, Alesi, Irvine gets a nudge, and it's a Minardi going off further back, and Willie T. Ribbs has got major damage as Martini clatters into the barrier. It's not a great start for the Minardi. How did it happen? Let's look again on the replay. As Martini is in there behind Irvine. Is he about to... He's the one who causes it, in fact. So Martini takes the plunge, overshoots, nudges the back of Ribbs' car. In fact, I think he nudged Irvine first and then went into Willie T. Ribbs. So problems there early doors. And Martini is out of the race. Capelli's gone off now as well. What happened to Ivan Capelli? He's battling away there in the midst. And we'll find out what happened to him as he made a move on his teammate. That's a hard charging Berger coming through. And he pushes Capelli and the Lotus off the racetrack. Oh dear. So yet again, Gerhard Berger getting a little bit too hectic there.
It's very much like bumper cars here in Paul Ricard. And you would have thought, even the junior drivers would know that the first lap does not win you the race. I mean, Berger tried too desperately to get in front of Capelli into that right-hander. That could have been so much worse, couldn't it? And Martini down at turn 1, he just nudged the back of Irvine, violently went airborne into the barrier on the right-hand side, and Capelli's going backwards now with that broken front wing. But Mika Hakkinen already pulling away from the Williams of Thierry Boutsen. And look at Nicola Larini. He is flying. He's down the inside look of the Lotus of Derek Warwick, back into the slipstream of the Brits. And look at the Tyrrells battling amongst each other. It looks like Alesi's pulling onside his teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen. He's done it.
So Alesi clearly proving that he is the team leader at Tyrrell. His new upstart teammate Frentzen, who was a test driver, has now come up to the main team. He does not want to be upstaged by the young German. Alesi has already won the last 2 Grand Prix in a row. He doesn't want to be upstaged. So Hakkinen leads the way from Boutsen, Alesi, Frentzen, Warwick, Larini, Patrese, Berger in 8th, De Cesaris and Gugelmin.
Hakkinen coming to cross the line in first place for Brabham. There's Thierry Boutsen in the Williams, only 7 tenths behind him. Williams and Thierry Boutsen still yet to win a race so far this season. Could today be the day to end that hoodoo? Jean Alesi and Heinz Svensson maintaining Tyrrell's 2 cars in the top 4. Jean Alesi, one of only 2 French drivers racing in the French Grand Prix here. Paul Ricard is in 3rd position, while Prost is outside the top 15 at the moment.
So Capelli is into the pits after suffering that damage on the opening lap, courtesy of Gerhard Berger. Willie T. Ribbs is into the pits for his damage, courtesy of Pierluigi Martini. So onto the back straight go the leaders. Hakkinen, Boutsen, Alesi. Frentzen in his first Grand Prix is in P4. Not a bad run from the German. Warwick in 5th in the Lotus. 6th is Larini in the Ligier. And they're battling away. Behind them we've got Patrese versus Berger. They must be having a nosebleed. They're so far down the order. 7th and 8th, the Williams and the McLaren, with a Lotus and a Ligier in front of them. It's like the 80s all over again as Alesi in the Tyrrell runs there in 3rd position. Berger again tries to get the move done on Patrese and can't make it stick.
Larini up 3 places from his grid position there. I've been interested to see where Ayrton Senna is, because he started at the back with his grid drop. So where has he got? Looks like he's up to 16th place already. So he's made up 10 places from his starting position for Ayrton Senna. He is flying at the moment.
Well, you would expect very little else from the world champion of 1988, Ayrton Senna, hoping to add a 2nd world title. A lot of people have already written that off as a possibility for 1990 and said it's not going to happen for Senna this year after the way the season has progressed. But with Berger getting himself coloured in rather unfortunate incidents, there could be an argument to say he might not be in the hunt for the British Grand Prix next time out. We've had some draconian penalties over the course of the last few races as Larini makes the lunge there. Brilliant overtake from the Italian. And this is a man who's already been courted by a few other teams for 1990. They didn't start the season brilliantly, the Ligier team, but look, Larini is doing a grand job here in 5th position. And even Cheever, who's not had the best of races, is right up there in 13th. So De Cesaris in the Lotus now making his bid past Berger. Hello, boys. The yellow Lotuses are going straight past the McLaren of Gerhard Berger. And that is De Cesaris in his first race of the season, passing Berger. Berger trying to have another look. Patrese making his bid for Warwick. Can't get by. Berger has to yield to De Cesaris.
And it's becoming clear as to why McLaren aren't so strong round here. And just want to have a look to see where the Benetons are, because Carl Wenger, the test driver for the Live team, is in 14th place, and the other replacement, I'm just trying to remember who it is actually.
It's Jan Lammers. He's just been passed by Morbidelli.
Yeah. The 2 full-time drivers, Alessandro Nannini and Nelson Piquet, are they have been banned for 1 race because of their antics in the last showing in Mexico. But Lammers and Wenger perhaps thrown in the deep end a little bit, considering the profile of the Benetton team. But there's still a long way to go yet, as Ayrton Senna is already in front of both Ferraris. Who would have thought that?
Yeah, the Ferraris are really struggling. They are 18th and 19th for Morbidelli and Prost. Do you remember that ultimatum that Alain Prost gave earlier in the season when he said they've got until the French Grand Prix to sort this out? Will that 4th place finish at Mexico be enough to convince Alain Prost that times are a-changing? Well, when you've got a man overtaking the Ferrari further back, that's positively not what you want, as Senna has caught up to Stefano Modena in the Brabham. Now, that Brabham's got a hefty kick in the back of its Honda engine, and it's looking likely that the Brabham is not going to be easy for Senna to pass, as Patrese makes another bid past De Cesaris. So the 2 Italians having a great race. And further back, that's Berger about to lose ground to Fernandez. Fernandez is suddenly a bit of a factor. He was amazing in Mexico. Perhaps this is the turn in fortunes that Fernandez has been hoping for.
Yeah, McLaren really struggling at the moment. It looks as though that Senna, further behind, was going to make a slam dunk manoeuvre on Stefano Modena, but he hasn't still got ahead of him. So McLaren not having the pace on the straights, it seems. The only way they can get pace on the straight is through the slipstream with the car in front. And Fernandez, nearly got the move done on Gerhard Berger in front, who has been trying to pass Riccardo Patrese. But, Andrea De Cesaris, who would have thought that in his first race for the Lotus team, in place of Martin Donnelly, who has moved to the Eurobrand team, who have been pre-qualifying earlier on. Donnelly didn't finish the race on that occasion, so not good news for him. But for De Cesaris, well, he's relishing the opportunity.
And of course, De Cesaris has plenty of experience. Here's Wendlinger making his move in the Benetton. Good overtake there from the young Austrian. Reserve driver, of course, for the Life team, given the call up by Benetton, as both Piquet and Nannini were given 1 race bans. And Larini is now challenging Fredson. Here we go. Nicola Larini having a bid on Heinz-Harald Fredson in the Tyrrell. He's swarming around all over the back of the German. He's trying to outfox him as they come down to the braking zone. As Winkelhock overshoots. Oh, Joe. It was such a good race in pre-qualifying, but Joe Winkelhock makes the mistake and he's damaged the Zach speed. He's got to run half a lap with that car not in a good form at all.
No, and he's thrown that good hard work all the way in the space of 5 laps there for Winkelhock. So not good news for the Zach Speed team, but at least they still have 2 cars running in the race. Unlike Minardi, who have already lost Pierre Luigi and Martini earlier on, who finished second in the pre-qualifying race. Martin Brundle is still running at the moment, albeit towards the back. So Thierry Boutsen still keeping in touch there somewhat with Mika Hakkinen in front. Sean Lacey a further second behind the Belgian, and Nicola Larini has finally got past Heinz-Harald Frentzen. So Nicola Larini having a very fine drive there in the Ligier, and this is Derek Warwick under pressure from Andrea De Cesaris, his teammate, and De Cesaris gets by him. Great move there. And is that Prost in trouble? Yes, it is.
The Ferrari still not on song then for Alain Prost. And it's been a very, very difficult year for the Frenchman. So what happens now, essentially? He did say, didn't he, the ultimatum was France. He has had a 4th place finish, which happened last time out in Mexico. But otherwise, it's been even more horrific in terms of their performance in Formula 1 than it was in 1989. If you recall, Mansell and Berger could barely get the car home in 1989. This year, it's been even worse for the Ferrari team. Prost went there hoping that he could change the fortunes, but if anything, the fortunes have got even worse as Senna tries to make the bid there on the Brabham of Stefano Modena, and he's just not able to do anything about it. Meanwhile, Jan Lammers in the Benetton is closing up on them, and Senna tries again on Modena. Oh, so close. He just can't get past the Italian, and Senna very much getting irritated, stuck behind Modena.
And is losing so much time behind the Brabham. And going back to Ferrari, it took Gerhard Berger, who was there last year, it took him as far as the Italian Grand Prix to register a finish to his name, because he had such a really rotten run of bad results of DNFs and stuff. He missed 1 race as well in Monaco because of a horrific accident at Imola, but luckily he's still going racing as he is at the moment. And Wengling, I think, has gotten past Alboreto, I believe, in the Benetton. So Wengling off a position in the Benetton. And I just want to keep an eye out on De Cesaris' pace, because he's pulling away from Derek Warwick. The gap is now 2.6 seconds, and that's exactly the same gap over Frentzen in front. So it'll be interesting to see what De Cesaris' times will be as he closes up on the Tyrrell in front.
So Chiva making the bid on Patrese now. The Williams is under threat from the Ligier. The Renault engines in the back of that Ligier pushing hard to try and get through on the inside of the Williams. Williams, of course, walked away from Renault at the start of this season after just 1 race and decided to opt for Hondas from Brazil onwards. And they've had mixed results. Renault decided to stay loyal to their customers. Ligier picked them up. And Ligier have actually had a real change in fortunes for Chiva and Larini. Larini up in P4 now. Chiva on the outskirts of the top 10, having not had the best of starts to the race. Gugelmin is right there in 12th place as well. Here's Boutsen, and he's being caught by Jean Alesi. But Mika Hakkinen, the youngest ever winner of a Formula 1 World Championship Grand Prix, who won the San Marino Grand Prix round 3 of this year's championship in only his 3rd start. 21 years of age, Mika Hakkinen. He is now leading a Grand Prix again. And there's Gugelmin running deep, trying to get his move on the inside of Chiva. And Warwick, I think, has been passed by Berger. So we'll have a look and see how that has happened. But Warwick has lost the place to Gerhard Berger. So Berger is through in the McLaren. Will we see that again? Yep, Berger just diving up the inside, trying to make up for lost time. And gets the move done on Derek Warwick. He's racing under a cloud, though, of course, because he's going to be under investigation from the stewards for his manoeuvre on the first lap that took Capelli down the order.
There are 3 Honda-powered cars in the top 5. Neither of them are the McLarens.
That's a very interesting observation. In fact, there are 4, aren't there? Because the 2 Tyrrells, Hakkinen's Brabham, and Boutsen's Williams. 4 out of 5 are all Honda. 4 out of 5 are all Honda-powered. but Larini is the odd one out. Larini with the Ligier Renault, and then of course we've got the Renault engine of the Cesaris. Here we go again, Lammers, Senna and Modena, as Willie T. Ribbs locks up a little further back. Alesi, though, has caught right up to Thierry Boutsen. Now this could get fascinating. Jean Alesi really wants to win on home soil. He won in Canada, he won in Mexico, but he really wants to win on home soil. And Jan Lammers tries to get past Senna, who is really struggling to stay in front of the Benetton. And he's really struggling to make the impression on Modena. He had a brilliant opening lap, but he's stuck behind a very sluggish Stefano Modena. And Alesi's got past Boutsen. Alesi's made the move on Thierry Boutsen. Let's see how he did it, Tom.
It looks like he did exactly the same thing as what Berger did with Warwick a lap ago, and he's down the inside of Boutsen, and a very slam dunk manoeuvre there for Alesi to put on a really good show in front of his home fans. The only French driver left in the running, as Prost is already out. But going back to Senna, he's losing a bundle of time behind the Brabham of Stefano Modena. Now, if I was Ron Dennis, or the team manager of the McLaren team, Chris Buxton that is, then I would bring Senna in to get him back out in clean air and complete the undercut on a series of drivers in front. And Boutsen gets past Alesi. Oh, Alesi's in trouble. You are kidding me.
Oh, no. Jean Alesi is about to retire from his home Grand Prix. The man who is fighting for the World Championship in 1990. It appears he's got an oil leak. Now, can he get it? Well, I say he's out of the race, but if he can get it back to the pits, he might be able to keep it running. No, there it is. Oh, dear. Well, that's going to burn the engine to a crisp, I'm afraid. So Jean Alesi was having such a good run in the French Grand Prix for the third time running. And I'm afraid the Tyrrell is going to park it. That is such a shame. So it is now left to their young new boy, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, doing an absolutely brilliant job in 5th position. It's about to become 4th. But that means that Larini in the Ligier is about to go up into 3rd place. Wow, that's Warwick!
How has he managed that, Derry White? Did he do the same thing as what a number of drivers did in the pre-qualifying race? So they're pushing too hard into that far chicane. I think he may well have done, you know. Yeah, he didn't even lock up. He just carried too much speed into the far chicane over the gravel where there's no grip whatsoever, and he spins the Lotus round. And what a waste of an opportunity there for Derek Warwick. He's not had quite the best of races. He had a really appalling time in Mexico City, and he's had, you know, his run of misfortune continues. But for Jean Alesi, I mean,
he can't quite believe it, can he? He's still motoring on. He finally pulls the car off the road, but De Cesaris is now having a go at Frentzen as Berger moves up into P6 and Alesi parks his car beside Alain Prost's Ferrari. And that is absolutely catastrophic bad luck for the French interest in this race. They've now got to pin all their hopes on a French team, and that is the man who's driving for them, Nicolas Larini, in 3rd position in the French Grand Prix, and this is only lap 10.
Ligier's last victory was in 1981. Could their 9-year exile from a race victory come to an end? And Andrea De Cesaris is down the inside, seemingly on Heinz-Harald Frentzen, but has to slot back in. Now, did he complete the manoeuvre going into that right-hander? I don't think he quite did so. So De Cesaris stays behind the German in 5th place. Well, if Derek Warwick can't achieve a good result today, he's down in 13th, then Andrea De Cesaris in his first race for the Lotus team, he could be able to, and doing so maybe win his first Grand Prix. Who knows with the way this race has gone, has been panning out at the moment. And looking at Gerhard Berger, with the situation as far as the championship is concerned, with Derek Warwick down the order, who's in second, and this is Wengler who's spinning now.
Whoa, that's not good. Oh, and Larini's in the pits! Larini is in the pit lane! Now, what's that for? Oh, the reason he's running so high up is he was on a light fuel load. So Larini actually deciding to make a pit stop very early. This is only lap 11. And so Larini deciding to throw caution to the winds there with the team strategy. And Larini is the first one in. Berger comes in as well. So they're pitting earlier than I thought they would. So straight into the pits then as Carl Wendlinger is trying to get the car going again. But he can't and he's out. But Wendlinger spins out of the race.
Not good there, and Wengler seemingly to have stalled the engine as he tried to rejoin there in the Benetton. So that's one of John Monroe's drivers out of the Grand Prix. Berger pitting as well at the same time as Larini, so he could be within of a chance of completing an undercut on a load of drivers to give himself the best chance possible of a decent result. And Hakkinen continuing to pull away a gap of 7 seconds on Thierry Boutsen in 2nd place, and it's Andrea De Cesaris another 16 seconds behind the Belgian driver. And Heinz-Feld Frentzen keeping him busy in 4th place. In fact, De Cesaris got by Frentzen eventually. So De Cesaris having a fascinating race there in 3rd. And it's Adrian Fernandez in 5th position in the footwork, ahead of Eddie Cheever's Ligier.
Well, Andrea De Cesaris has tried so many times to win a Grand Prix. The closest he ever came to winning one was Monaco in 1982. If his car had continued without running out of fuel on the last lap at Monaco in 82, he would have won the Grand Prix when Pironi spluttered to a halt. So De Cesaris has tried many times to win a Grand Prix. The Lotus team are now in 3rd place. Obviously, this is very early doors to be talking about it as Willie T. Ribbs moves over and lets Mika Hakkinen in the Brabham through. But we really do have a bit of a changing of the guard now, don't we? Because we've got Hakkinen up front, Boutsen in the Williams, De Cesaris in the Lotus makes his good comeback and he's in 3rd place. Senna and Prost are not even in the top 10. Prost is out, Senna's in 13th.
Yes, and with situations in the championship is concerned, Hakkinen would move up into 2nd in the Drivers' Championship. And, well, this seems to be a fascinating rookie season for the Flying Finn. Could he become Formula One's first ever driver to win a championship in their maiden campaign? Fascinating.
Absolutely. If you don't count the 1950s and Giuseppe Farina, it wasn't in his first year of Grand Prix racing when he won the first official Formula One World Championship, so it doesn't really count. But Mika Hakkinen is genuinely making a go of it in his debut season in Formula One with Brabham. Here's Andrea De Cesaris, 3rd position in the Lotus Renault. Not the first time they've run Renault engines. And here's Senna about to lose out to Jan Lammers. Lammers in the Benetton. The Ford just doesn't quite have the grunt of the Honda as into the pits comes Hakkinen from the lead. So Hakkinen making a bid for the pit lane as Lammers tries again on Ayrton Senna. Behind them is Morbidelli in the Ferrari. But there's no way through for Jan Lammers. He can't quite make it stick there. But Thierry Boutsen leads the race. Hakkinen is going to rejoin in 2nd, I do believe, just ahead of De Cesaris. No, De Cesaris is going to get through. What about Frentzen in the Tyrrell and Fernandez in the Arrows? Are they going to get by as well? I think they will. So Fernandez rejoins in 4th. Hakkinen rejoins, I should say, in 5th place behind Frentzen. So very nicely done for the Brabham team. Oh, and Ghinzani's gone off.
Now, has he done a similar thing to how
he has.
Yeah.
Carbon copy, look at that.
Yeah, carbon copy of Carl Wenglier's accident, except he's gone into the gravel on the left-hand side of the circuit there. Can he get the car spinning around? There's a couple of cars turning around. He may be able to do it, provided he doesn't come back on into the path of another driver and Ghinzani comes back on safely. So at least both stack speeds are in the race, unlike some teams who have only got one left.
Well, Lammers comes into the pits. Berger has just made the move on Morbidelli to close up on his own teammate Senna. So the McLarens are currently 13th and 14th. Who would have predicted this coming into the season? It's been dominance for McLaren the last 2 seasons in 1988 and 1989. It seems that Prost leaving to join Ferrari really has shaken the core of the McLaren team. And Senna, for whatever reason, the luck has not been with McLaren this year. Berger has sustained it in the first part of the year, but certainly since then, it's really been a problem. Senna is still stuck behind Stefano Modena in the Brabham as we ride with Willie T. Ribbs, who lets the Williams go up in front, and Stefano Modena is still battling away with Ayrton Senna, who is finally making a bid up the inside. He's got to throw it up the inside. Now he gets through, but he's wasted 12 laps stuck behind the Brabham. He needs to get the hammer down now.
Well, he's got some track position to pull out some qualifying laps as Eddie Cheever comes in for a pit stop from 6th place. So that will move Senna up as upper position. And Senna's got 8 seconds to make up on Nicola Larini, who has already stopped, remember. And with Boutsen staying out for quite a bit, could the undercut work for Larini? But having said that, Larini's 0.4 of a second behind Warwick as he crossed the finish line. So he's got quite a bit of ground to make up as Larini in order to get in front of Boutsen. And this is Fernandez behind Frentzen now. So Fernandez absolutely flying, carrying on his great form from his home race in Mexico City. He's in the slipstream of the Tyrrell. He may want to duck back in to get the slipstream again, to get the momentum into the right-hander. He doesn't quite do it there, but he's got the hairpin where the overtaking really can be done. He's down the inside. does he complete the move? Not quite there for Fernandez.
You got to remember that Arrows have not finished as high as 4th in a Grand Prix in 1990, so he's got to think about the points as well as going for the manoeuvre. It's a long Grand Prix this here at Paul Ricard. The circuit is a long one, and it is a car killer. We've seen that in the pre-qualifying race, but it's a very tricky scenario, very difficult situation for the teams. As here comes Brundle, making his bid to go up the inside of Eddie Irvine. I think that is in the Real. So they're having a nice battle. Pre-qualifying teams, they're just enjoying being in a Grand Prix once again. As into the pits comes Fernandez. So he was pit lane bound regardless. So into the pits comes Fernandez. Now we've got to keep an eye on the Mexican. He's definitely one to watch. So now they've got 26 laps of fuel going into that car. And Fernandez is one that we need to keep an eye on. He's been very strong in the North American single-seater ladder. 26 years of age, the young Mexican. So he's got plenty of career ahead of him in Grand Prix racing, if this is anything to go by.
So looking at Fernandez, who's rejoined behind Ayrton Senna. So that's one less driver for Senna to pass on track before he comes in for his first pit stop. And he's making up ground, actually, on Nicola Larini in front. So Senna beginning to put in some really fast lap times to make up for lost time in the early stages. And I just want to see what his first second gap is on the Italian. It is now 6.7 seconds just about on Larini. So Senna most definitely gaining on the Ligier in front.
So the battle continues as De Cesaris runs in second place. Oh, that's one of the Reals in trouble. That's got to be Eddie Irvine. So Eddie Irvine in the Real. The car is smoking, I'm afraid. And that is going to be a retirement for the Real Honda. An engine failure. Those Hondas really are being pushed to the limit here at Paul Ricard as De Cesaris pits from P2. So into the pits is the Lotus, and that's going to go 24 laps into the race. So De Cesaris in the Lotus, still with a really good chance of a podium, maybe even a victory in this one, as Hakkinen has caught right up to the back of Frentzen, and the Brabham driver is going to try and make a bid to get into second place. This is all looking good for the Flying Finn.
Indeed, and he should get him on the... it's the Mistral straight. So as Derek Warwick gets past Andrea De Cesaris, who's just come out of the pits after his pit stop. So I would think going to be some team orders from the Lotus camp to allow De Cesaris to get back through, and he does. So no harm done there. So De Cesaris back through ahead of Warwick, and De Cesaris can now go after those who he's battling with on circuit. The next driver in front of the Italian is Michele Alboreto, as Eddie Irvine pulls off with his problem from earlier on. So what a shame there for the Renault team.
Well, fortunately, it doesn't look as though he's done too many races any damage by pulling off there. As we've lost Carl Wendlinger, Eddie Irvine, Jean Alesi from a battle for victory, Alain Prost, a rather ignominious absence for Ferrari, and Pierluigi Martini in the Minardi, who was out on lap 1, of course. But you have to say, in Martini's case, he pretty much put himself out of the race there. So Eddie Irvine has pulled off to the side of the racetrack, and the Marshals have actually got an interesting task there, because that's on the final corner, of course. And you can see that he's not, for some reason...
Bootson's in the pits, by the way, Jake.
Yes, sorry, you're right. Boutson is in the pits, the race leader, getting out on circuit again. He should rejoin in front of his teammate, Riccardo Patrese. And he's there in third, the Williams. There's Patrese going through in fourth place. Now, they've split the strategy, interestingly, at Williams. Because it looks to me as though Patrese is on a one-stop strategy, and Boutson is on a two-stopper. Now, that's indicative that they're being quite aggressive. Hakkinen has got through Frentzen. I missed that. I do apologise, but Hakkinen has got through past Frentzen. Now, here's the Ligier. This is Eddie Cheever lining up Gerhard Berger in the McLaren, and he's got so much grunt in that Renault engine. They really have worked on it here at Paul Ricard. He just can't quite get the overhaul on the McLaren. Whatever has befallen the McLaren team in 1990, they really do need to make a bit of a comeback here in this season. Senna, of course, won the Monaco Grand Prix, but ever since then, it's been an absolutely catastrophic situation for the McLaren team. And for Ferrari, likewise with them. Morbidelli is there in 15th behind, though. You can see him there. So here comes the Ligier down the back straight, and Cheever's got a good run on Berger here. Good horsepower. And the Renault engine should kick in here. And yes, indeed, Cheever is going to blast past Gerhard Berger, surely in the braking zone for the right-hander. There's not going to be a lot of resistance Berger can put up. They go deep into the corner. Berger drives around the outside, though. Good commitment from Berger to hold on to the place ahead of Eddie Cheever.
And Häkkinen's move on Frentzen was crucial because Bootston was just exiting the pits from his pit stop on fresher tyres, and he's going to be on the back of Frentzen very shortly. So keep an eye on Bootston as he comes up to the Tyrrell driver, the sole surviving Tyrrell, of course, after John Lacey pulled out of the race earlier on, which is a massive shame, not just his chances of racking up another victory, but for the Drivers' Championship as well, because be behind Häkkinen as it stands, and with Häkkinen leading, and Berger, who's outside of the points at the moment, but with others still yet to pit, it's likely that Berger will end up with a points finish to cement his lead in the championship. And Bootston's still not able to pass Frentzen at the moment.
Well, let's not forget that Frentzen's made a pit stop. He actually has undercut Boutsen in the Williams, so Frentzen has managed to jump him to get into second place. So Tyrrell have got themselves in a very handy situation here because their car is clearly strong, solid. For Alesi, it wasn't able to go the distance, but for Frentzen, it might. And in his first ever Grand Prix, the 22-year-old German has got a great chance now of hanging on in front of the Williams.
Now, it'd be interesting to see what strategy Frentzen is on as well. And this is Senna almost losing the place actually to Fernandez. So McLaren most definitely struggling at the moment. Berger's got by Eddie Cheever by the looks of it. Already Cheever tried to get past Berger, whichever way of the two. So yeah, McLaren most certainly struggling again, as I do reiterate my point there of McLaren's performance today. And there was a move there from Ivan Capelli. I think it was one of the back speeds who was trying to get past Capelli, making up the lost time after the opening lap shenanigans he's had with Gerhard Berger. Berger is under investigation from that earlier on. And another driver to point out, Jake, that we haven't really mentioned in this race is Mauricio Gugelmin in 5th position. Now, he's had a clean race in the Leighton House, and it looks as though he's on course for another good result there for the Brazilian.
So there is Frentzen and Boutsen still battling away. Here's Cheever making his bid on the inside of Berger. But Gerhard Berger proving himself to be very aggressive in the 1990 season. He does not want to let that one occur. Oh, and we're hearing that the Converse Stellara team have been discussing with the stewards almost since the start of the Grand Prix about Damon Hill's penalty in the pre-qualifying race. They have overturned it, so he will not take a 30-second penalty now. They have concluded that while Damon Hill did hit the back of Willie T. Ribbs' car, Ribbs' Real was unsighted and they couldn't do it. Oh, that's the Rini! That's the Rini! Oh, the Ligier was going so well today! That could have been a podium for Ligier! Oh, you've got to feel for Larini. And it's a puncture. It's not even anything wrong with the car. In essence, it's a puncture that he's picked up. So Larini, game over. But Dave Goddard, the team boss, will surely be feeling a lot more confidence heading into the second half of the season that the Ligier is now a competitive race car at the front of the 1990 Formula One field. But you've got to feel for Larini. He was one of the drivers of the day for me.
He most certainly was, and how brilliant would it have been for the Ligier team in their home event to get a podium out of this?
What's happened to Frentzen? What's happened to Frentzen? Frentzen is suddenly down in P10. Now, I think he's had an incident, you know. He was in second place, don't forget. He's just come out of the pits, I think. So Frentzen's had a pit stop by the look of it.
Strange. He may have made a pit stop because...
Yes, he did. He made a pit stop. That's exactly what it was. I do apologise. I missed that. So he's actually... Now, was that scheduled? Because I thought he'd already pitted. Maybe they picked up a problem of some kind with Frentzen's Tyrrell and they've had to bring him in and get him back out again. But I thought he'd already pitted.
Yeah, I think he may well have come in for a pit stop. I think they've put like a short amount of fuel in there, and this is a move from the Minardi of Martin Brundle down the inside of what looks like Ivan Capelli in the Leighton House. So that's a position gain there for the Minardi driver. Brundle chasing for a points finish. So could Frentzen's late pit stop... Now, he's going to be on the lighter fuel load, is Frentzen. I would expect him to power his way back past the likes of Fernandez, Senna, Warwick and co. to put him back in range for a podium position. But let's not forget that Patrese is seemingly on a one-stop strategy, so he's very much in play for a podium as well. In fact, both Williams could be on the podium by the end of the race.
So there are a few drivers worth keeping an eye on. Gugelmin is now up in 4th place, and he's on a one-stopper. So Gugelmin in the Leighton House is on a one-stop strategy here. So that car could go quite a long way into the race, although they won't have fresh tyres at the end of the Grand Prix. Senna, I think, is on a one-stop strategy too. I think they've figured out that the car is not going to be particularly fast over one lap. So they're going to use Senna's expertise behind the wheel to try and get him as many points out of this Grand Prix as possible. And they've decided to go one-stopper with him as well. So we're being told that Frentzen was on a late pit stop strategy. So in fact, he hadn't pitted originally. So he rejoined in 10th position. But Frentzen had lost a bit of ground, so apparently that was his first scheduled pit stop. But Hakkinen, Boutsen, Patrese, De Cesaris, Gugelmin, Alboreto and Warwick, then Senna, Fernandez and Frentzen. So Frentzen down in 10th position after his pit stop.
Just to read out something that the Ferrari team manager, Chris Cavani, has sent to me, Jake, that Mika Hakkinen, with his pole position today, is now the youngest pole sitter at 21 years, 9 months and 10 days, beating Andrea De Cesaris' record set in 1982.
So there you go. Mika Hakkinen is now the youngest ever Grand Prix winner and the youngest ever pole position sitter. And he's in his first Grand Prix season with the Brabham Honda. Maybe he might just be able to get this car all the way to the end of the season, because it was always, in essence, a quick car. There were fears at the start of the season that it was going to be underdeveloped and certainly underpowered because of all sorts of difficulties at the start of the year, essentially. And up the inside, that's Fernandez getting pressure from Frentzen, who's trying to come back through. Senna has got back past Derek Warwick. That's the man who he rather famously vetoed out of the Lotus team a few years ago when he was choosing teammates, essentially, for 1986. And he said, I don't want Derek Warwick in the Lotus team. I think I will be challenged by him if that is the case. And he spent 2 years at the Lotus team. One alongside Johnny Dumfries and one alongside Satoru Nakajima. And Derek Warwick then got his job when he moved to McLaren. Fernandez about to lose ground to Frentzen. Frentzen coming through on the inside line in the Tyrrell. Thank you very much indeed. Up into P9 for the Tyrrell Honda of Heinz-Harald Frentzen as he closes up on Derek Warwick. Meanwhile, De Cesaris had initially been passed by Gugelmin, but De Cesaris has got back through into 3rd position. There's Boutsen closing in on Hakkinen.
Whilst we keep an eye on the battle for the lead, our good friend and Tyrrell manager Sam Hole's decided to join us, Jake, because he's got something to share with you.
Right.
Hello, Jake. Yes, I can confirm that that was an unscheduled stop for Heinz-Harald Frentzen. We're not entirely sure what was wrong with the car. We just had to plug the computer in and take it out, and it was all fine again. As you can see, as he's nicely making his way back through the field. Another beautiful move for him there as well. Yes, but we can confirm that Frentzen is going to carry on in the second car for the remainder of the season. Now, in a statement, we've said that his strong qualifying performances and early pace left the management in no doubt. He deserves the drive alongside Alesi. And Ricard Rydell will now assume a reserve driver role for the remainder of the year and will be released from the team at the end of the year. He will not be carrying on in any capacity with the team at the end of the year.
Well, it's not great news for Ricard Rydell, but certainly for the team. Oh, was Boutsen in trouble there? Something seemed to have occurred. Oh, Boutsen spun it! I do apologise. Thanks for the information, Sam, but Boutsen has spun the Williams. Now he's rejoined without losing a position, but that was his chance to get past Mika Hakkinen, and it's now long gone. So Thierry Boutsen, unfortunately, out of the battle for victory for the moment. He's still in second place, a few seconds behind Hakkinen, but he's gone off there. So, well, at least we've got an update there about Tyrrell that Frentzen's pit stop was unscheduled. They have managed to bring him back into the action and bring him towards the front once more, which is good news. But very dramatic stuff at Williams for Boutsen, who's now only a handful of seconds in front of his teammate Patrese. And that's Hakkinen. Well, the Brabham team will have given a massive intake of pressure there, and it's just been blown out in one fell swoop. A sigh of relief at Brabham, as Williams are now down to second again, 13 seconds off the back of Hakkinen.
Boutsen losing a dozen seconds by overshooting into that right-hander. We've seen quite a number of drivers lock up into there. And another fact to touch on, Jake, is that Bruce McLaren holds the record currently, being the youngest driver ever to win a Grand Prix in 1959. Could that record come to an end with Mika Hakkinen taking victory at the age of just 21?
Well, of course, he already managed to do so at Imola, didn't he? He did so at Imola early in the year, so he's already eclipsed McLaren's record there. And that was a fabulous achievement. But more importantly, I'm trying to remember the last time a rookie driver won more than one race in a season. Because Alesi technically is not a rookie. He raced in 1989 for half the season. Frentzen up the inside of Senna. Senna around the outside, trying to hold the position. Well, Heinz-Harald Frentzen in his first Grand Prix goes toe-to-toe with Senna and held himself up there very admirably.
Well, isn't there not such a thing about you no longer go for a gap, you're no longer a racing driver? Well, I think Frentzen's just followed Senna's word there by lunge one up the inside and nearly doing it. And Winkelhock, I think he was just being lapped there by the footwork of what looked like Fernandez, because
it's Alboreto. It's Alboreto. I do apologise. Yeah, Alboreto. And now Senna and Frentzen have both got through. Senna has remained in front of Frentzen. Frentzen's gone for it. And fair play. I'm not surprised that Tyrrell decided to keep this boy, because 22 years of age. He's been in sports car racing the last couple of seasons and Formula 3000. And it's clear that young Heinz-Harald Frentzen has definitely got something here. Very impressive performance from him. They're picking these drivers out of obscurity younger and younger these days, though, aren't they? Hakkinen's only 21. You've got Frentzen, who's only 22. Schumacher, of course, in the Reynard is only 21. You've got some really impressive young talent coming through. JJ Leto is another one. He's only 23. Paul Warwick is 21. And he's only... he's quite considerably younger, of course, than his big brother, Derek. So there's quite a lot of talent coming through the ranks here, as Patrese runs in third place behind Boutsen, who is not able to close up at the moment on Hakkinen. Jan Lammers locking up the Benetton a little bit. But it's certainly starting to appear to be a bit of a young man's game, Grand Prix racing in the 90s.
And whilst you were saying that, Jake, Frentzen passed Senna rather easily. So the Honda-powered Tyrrell passing the Honda-powered McLaren, and it's the Tyrrell that has the upper hand over the team that won the championship in 1988 and 89. And, well, you wouldn't have thought that at the beginning of the season, would you, for 1990? This championship is proving to be one of the most closest we've had in years. It was a very close championship in 1989 with so many different race winners. Well, we've had so many different race winners from the first 6 rounds of the championship.
Certainly 1990 seems to be the dawn of a new era in Grand Prix racing, with a heck of a lot of drivers competing for race wins. There is your race leader, Mika Hakkinen from Finland, 21 years of age, part of the Marlborough Academy prior to this season. I don't think his sponsorship will be enough to keep his signature, because Hakkinen will be wanting top billing from 1991 onwards. He's a Grand Prix winner now. He can probably make a play for it. But there's some fascinating battles on circuit here as the Williams cars run 2nd and 3rd. The Lotus cars are running 4th and 9th. They were running both in the top 6 with Warwick, but a mistake from him earlier in the race has dropped him down the order, as Piercarlo Ghinzani very nearly overshoots again there in the Zach Speed. But it's wonderful to see Zach Speed in a Grand Prix again.
It most certainly is, and Ghinzani doing well in the... I think he had a spin earlier on, didn't he? But he was able to recover it, unlike Carl Wengler did earlier. But, Jo Winkelhock still in the Grand Prix, despite having to pit earlier for a new front wing. But both Zach Speed are still in the race, and with 27 laps to go, so we're at half race distance, still plenty of time for anything to change. And given the likes of Alesi, Prost, and others pulling out earlier, anything is possible. And this is Frentzen trying to make a move on Michele Alboreto in the footwork, and the footwork still keeping his nose in front of the Tyrrell, but it won't be too long before Frentzen gets on the tail of him. And should he be in the slipstream, this should be a slam dunk manoeuvre for Frentzen, as he did with Senna earlier on.
Wow, a fantastic race, still very much in the swing of things. Hakkinen, Boutsen, Patrese, De Cesaris, Gugelmin and Alboreto is the top 6 at the moment, from Frentzen, Senna, Warwick and Fernandez. Several drivers missing from this race that should be here. Obviously, the likes of Piquet and Nannini missing a race at Benetton after both were given one-race bans from Mexico. After Mexico, I should say. Mansell is injured. He picked up an injury in one of those incidents with Nelson Piquet. And he's broken a heel, so he's probably going to miss his home Grand Prix as well. That's rather unfortunate for Nigel Mansell. Senna is down the order. He's in 8th place on a one-stop strategy, having picked up a back of the grid penalty as De Cesaris goes wheel to wheel with the Real there of Willie T. Ribbs, doing a fabulous job to get around him. We've obviously also got problems for Alain Prost. He's out of the race. Shauna Lacey out of the race. Nicola Larini was one of the stars of the race earlier on. He put in a great showing as Gugelmin pits, and the one-stoppers are doing so. So Alboreto in the pits as well. Gugelmin in the pits as well. So Senna will probably not be too long from the pit lane either.
No, I don't think he will be. And I just want to have a look at De Cesaris' time, because he is closing out somewhat on Riccardo Patrese. And as I predicted earlier, Frentzen got by Alboreto on the back straight. So Frentzen coming back through the field and setting some very, very fast times. He's less than 4 seconds behind the Lotus of Andrea De Cesaris in 4th place. So Frentzen is coming back at a rate of knots, and what a brilliant debut it is for him in the Tyrrell team. And Sam Hall will most definitely be very, very pleased, and it's good to hear that Frentzen has been retained on a permanent basis within the squad alongside Shauna Lacey, and what a fabulous future he's got ahead of him if he keeps going at the form that he's doing.
Wow. Very interesting battles so far then, as there is Patrese. He's dropping back from Boutsen. Boutsen is now finally starting to make inroads into Hakkinen. There's Chiva, and he's getting a little bit of pressure now from Gianni Morbidelli in the Ferrari. I think he's on a one-stop strategy, you know, but he's going quite long into the race. So Morbidelli in the Ferrari. He might actually be on a two-stopper. I'm fairly sure he did pit in earlier, actually. So Morbidelli hustling Chiva in the sole remaining Ligier. And into the pits for the 3rd time comes Frentzen in behind Senna. Now, that's an interesting one. That was scheduled for Frentzen. It was also scheduled for Senna, so both drivers coming into the pit lane together then. But this is Frentzen's final stop. It's Senna's final stop as well. So, fascinating scenario for our two drivers towards the front end of the field. Senna's pit stop, an interesting one to pick up on, Tom.
Indeed, and I don't think Senna had quite the best of first stints. This is his only stop, I believe. So could his second stint and his fresh set of rubber prove to be a decisive factor in this race? I'm interested to see where he rejoins. He's behind Gugelmin, so Frentzen will rejoin behind Gugelmin, and Senna is behind Modena again, the driver who he held up so much in the first 12 or 13 laps of this race. Senna's going to have to pass him again.
Well, this is a fascinating French Grand Prix with a heck of a lot of interesting plays still to be made in it. And the race continues on as Boutsen runs in second position behind... Now, this is interesting. I've been handed a very intriguing piece of paper. Now, this is obviously what we've heard from the press room downstairs, but Alain Prost has returned to the pits and he has told Le Monde, the very successful French periodical, of course, that he's told Le Monde he will walk away from the Ferrari team with immediate effect. And he is now seeking an alternative seat for the British Grand Prix onwards. That is very dramatic from Alain Prost. He has decided to part company with Ferrari before the first half of the season is even completed. Wow.
Yeah, it was that's a very, very big shot there indeed. And that stuns me, to be quite honest with you.
That's a stunning revelation, because Ferrari will now need to seek a replacement for Alain Prost, obviously. And with Prost walking away, well, that has blown the drivers' market for this season wide open, because obviously now teams will want to put Alain Prost in their second car or they've got drivers. Any team that was possibly considering having a bit of a rethink about their driver lineup for 1991, that's changed all sorts now, because apparently the piece of paper I've been handed by my good friend down in the press room, he said that Prost will accept $6 million to see out the season. Now, obviously, That's a break in the contract. That means Ferrari will obviously get a portion of that money back, which in a double-handed way is actually beneficial to Ferrari. They were spending a massive amount on the Ferrari contract with Prost, but the amount of money they'll save now, they can actually put that back into the budget, surely, and make the car go faster by the end of the season.
Well, if Chris Caveney was looking for money to put towards horsepower, I most definitely think that he'll be after it right now, and he'll be wishing that that came in earlier in the season as Derek Warwick comes into the pits for what looks like his first stop of the race. He is in desperate need of a good result in this one, and he's going to drop well out of the points with the field so close to each other. Look at Gugelmin all the way down to Morbidelli, just 8 seconds between him in 7th and Morbidelli in 14th.
Well, a fascinating turn of events then. Even on the sidelines, there is drama in the French Grand Prix. And that's Frenson. That's Frenson passing Gugelmin. So Frenson gets past Mauricio Gugelmin. And the Tyrrell driver, of course, can go to the end of the race with this particular car, with this particular strategy. So Frenson is going well in P6. And, well, even more than ever, he is driving for his seat, because we now know that the reigning world champion is walking away from Ferrari and will want to see out the season in a competitive car. We already know that the Tyrrell is a competitive car. What about an all-French lineup at Tyrrell? Alesi and Prost. That would be essentially the sorcerer and his apprentice, wouldn't it? To put Prost and Alesi together in the same team. But then, well, we know that there are several teams in dire straits. Morbidelli is going to have a new teammate at the British Grand Prix, whatever happens, and it's not going to be Nigel Mansell, interestingly enough. So, Nigel Mansell is still injured. What is Ferrari going to do to replace Prost? There are so many drivers they could call upon that are still on the sidelines. This may even start a chain reaction around the pit lane, couldn't it? Because if Prost takes a big seat mid-season with one of the leading teams, then there could be a top driver without a race drive.
Well, I just wonder, where could Prost end up going to? Because, Stefano Modena is not making any heroics like
he's not, is he? Into the pits he comes. But yeah, he's definitely... There's a lot of talk about Modena, isn't there? About whether he'll see out the season. As there goes... Is that Warwick passing the McLaren?
Warwick on Senna, yeah. Warwick on Senna.
Well, there are so many teams that would want to sign Alain Prost, even mid-season. And we've seen it a few times in the past before, with a driver falling out of love with a team mid-season, walking away and finding a berth elsewhere. But as high profile as Prost, it's rare. It's very rare.
Yeah, just trying to think of alternatives. Just there's no way that the Lotus team would want to give Prost the drive when De Cesaris is performing at the moment, and the situation with Derek Warwick in the Drivers' Championship. Their seats are very much filled in for the rest of the year. And Patrese is in the pits now in the Williams from 3rd position. He should rejoin in 5th behind Adrian Fernandez. Now, I'd be interested to see, Jay, what strategy Fernandez is on. I think he's on a 2-stop by the looks of things. I'm just having a look now as we speak. Frenson continues to get...
He is indeed. Yeah, he is indeed. You're right.
Yeah, so Fernandez should rejoin in the Frenson, Gugelmin, Warwick, Senna, Alboreto, Berger, Chiva, Capelli scrap. It's been that hectic of a race. There's so many names that could end up in the points by the end of this one, but that's just how cracking of an event we've had.
Now, here's something a bit left field, Tom. How about this boy? As a Ferrari driver, Adrian Fernandez brings backing with him, of course, from Tech 8. He's been very quick for the Arrows team. Arrows are considering the possibility of mooching for Prost. What if they did a straight swap? Because Prost would be in a fairly competitive car, as the Arrows has become. Fernandez would get to live out the boyhood Latin dream of being a Ferrari driver. And it could actually work out in both teams' favours. Arrows could win their first Grand Prix. Fernandez could drive for the Scuderia.
Well, the problem you've got is, where will Fernandez be when Mansell comes back?
That's true.
Fernandez stay at Ferrari and Morbidelli moves back into a reserve role. Because Mansell is contracted to race at Ferrari. Ferrari can't just all of a sudden rip a contract up behind the drivers whilst they're injured.
And Mansell, when you were talking about Mansell, he's not the kind of driver to walk away from a deal mid-season like Prost has.
No, and I think Mansell is the more mature individual within Ferrari than Prost is. And with Mansell not performing either at the moment, because he's still yet to finish a race in 1990, could he be looking for alternatives for 91?
Well, Fernandez has just got back in behind the Williams of Thierry Boutsen, and Fernandez is making the move on the inside of Boutsen. Fernandez overtakes the Williams, and the Mexican has suddenly thrown himself into the shop window as part of this merry-go-round. Fernandez is a driver that people need to keep an eye on here. Very talented indeed, the young Mexican. And all of a sudden, Adrian Fernandez is now surely one of the prime movers. Oh, that's Alboreto coming off the circuit. He's got a gearbox failure. The gearbox has seized on Alboreto. Oh, and there's a spin further ahead. That's Chiva. Chiva has spun the car.
Well, that was so bizarre. I mean, did he get caught out by Alboreto pulling off the racetrack? I don't think he did, because Alboreto was 2 cars ahead of him. No, he just went wide, bottled by himself, hit the gravel, spun round, back to front, and yeah, that's wrecked Chiva's race, hasn't it?
Well, you know what this also means for Chiva? This is not the kind of race where you want to be putting on a bit of an embarrassing show when a French team like Ligier has the budget to bring someone like Prost in. And Renault would love that, wouldn't they? Renault would love to have Alain Prost, the reigning world champion, in their squad.
Yeah, I mean, Prost's options are very much on the table for him, depending on whose interest is going to be coming from where. I mean, I'd like to think there will be a team asking for Prost's signature. The question is, where will that be? Will it be in an Arrows? Will it be in a... Will it be in a Ligier? Will it be in a Williams? Will it be at Tyrrell? Will it be anywhere?
Fernandez, he loses ground to Boutsen again, so Boutsen retakes Fernandez. So Boutsen has got back on the inside of the Mexican. Now, an interesting statement I've just been handed by the Minardi team. Pierluigi Martini says he's willing to sacrifice the pre-qualifying Go Bobby Cup to express interest in the vacant Ferrari seat. Now that's very interesting, isn't it? As Berger pits in the McLaren. So Berger from P10 into the pits. I can't see in a month of Sundays any possibility of Prost returning at McLaren. I can't see that one. There's just too much disharmony between Prost and McLaren after last year. So at least we know there's 2 teams he won't be driving for. As Hakkinen comes into the pits. Now that surely is a candidacy potentially for Prost. He can see that Hakkinen is out there in front in a Brabham. He's younger than Prost by quite a considerable margin. Prost, you have to argue, is a potential world champion again. Would they consider Brabham offering the drive to Prost and put the new boy Hakkinen alongside Prost, or would that cause too much friction with Hakkinen clearly in a bid for the title?
Well, Prost is at the moment fighting for his career. Hakkinen is fighting for the championship title. There's no doubt about it. Prost can forget about the championship. I mean, that's long gone as far as he's concerned, and as far as Ferrari are concerned.
It's only mathematical, isn't it? Really.
Well, I suppose with the nature of how this season's gone, and if Prost was all of a sudden able to put together a run of results, then he'd at least have a half a chance. But it's too much for me. And Hakkinen is right behind the Cesaris, who is still yet to make a last trip to the pits. So this should be a slam dunk manoeuvre for Hakkinen. If he can pull alongside the Italian, he should be able to get back into the lead. And does he do it here? No, he doesn't.
Well, the Cesaris wants to put himself in the frame for a decent drive as well. What if he suddenly ends up a candidate for Ferrari? Italian driver, Andrea De Cesaris, brings Marlboro money. Lots of experience, don't forget. Do you know what? Prost leaving Ferrari mid-season and dropping the bombshell mid-race has suddenly turned this 1990 season on its head. This could be the turning point manoeuvre of the season. Oh, De Cesaris locks up! De Cesaris locks up there. Massive mistake, but you're absolutely right. He is due for the pits, and he'll come in at the end of this lap. I think his tyres have gone as far as they can go, but Hakkinen is surely going to have him into the first corner, Tom. Up the inside, job done.
Yes, job done, and Cesaris making a needless mistake there into the last turn, and as a result, and Derek Warwick's out.
Puncture on the left rear. So Derek Warwick out of the race as well. Unfortunately, he joins the retirements list, and that is not great news from his point of view. So the Lotus parks up on the side of the road. Wow. Big problems there for the team.
Very big problems, and it's not a good omen for Andrea de Cesare, who's in second place, and Senna locking up there in seventh place. We haven't spoken much about Senna in this race, have we? Apart from the climb he'd made up from the back of the grid, in seventh position in front of his teammate Gerhard Berger, who's 35 seconds behind him.
Yeah, Gerhard Berger has just been conspicuous by his absence for the majority of this race, ever since that incident at the start. I wonder if he's picked up damage with the car's handling, because Berger has just looked completely off the pace. I mean, I know he's had another pit stop, but Senna on a one-stop strategy has been able to get himself up into 7th place, and Berger has slumped to 10th. So the McLaren clearly off the pace at Paul Ricard anyway, but Berger has just not been able to make use of the car he's got under his right foot. So some big drama, some controversial conversations already. And, well, a fascinating situation as De Cesaris pits, much to the joy of the Lotus team, because I think with Warwick picking up a puncture, there was a little concern that De Cesaris might have made the same mistake. Senna is going to try and get past De Cesaris out of the pits, but the Lotus driver doing a good job in the top 5. Frentzen is going to pass him, I think, on the main straight. As Fernandez in the arrows, can he go the distance now? No, he's got to make another pit stop. So Fernandez running as high as 3rd, but there's a lot of drivers who are very much in the shop window for race seats, not just at Ferrari, but for whatever opportunity they can get mid-season when the magic roundabout of merry-go-round of race seats stops turning.
Well, the game of musical chairs is what I would call this driver market at the moment, Jake, rather than the magic roundabout. You know, it's very much, you know, this driver goes here and then pushes another driver into another race seat within a different team. It's manic. I mean, that's just typical Formula 1, isn't it? It's the silly season, some people would like to call it. As Andrea de Cesare is rejoined in front of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who's 30 seconds off the lead, 10 seconds behind 4th place Patrese, which will become 3rd once Fernandez comes in for his last stop.
So this is the battle between Lammers and Cheever. Unfortunate for the Ligier team, because their fortunes really have taken a hammer blow. 2 mistakes from Cheever have put them down in 14th, but Larini earlier on before the puncture demonstrating that the car definitely has potential. There's Modena holding up another McLaren. This time it's Berger. And, well, Ewan Gale, the team boss at Brabham, must be potentially considering, you know, is it worth keeping Modena in that car, or do they spend their astronomical budget that they've had from the backing from Marlboro on a world champion, Alain Prost? It wouldn't be a terrible car for him to end up in, as Morbidelli overshoots and hits the barrier.
Well, if that just sums up Ferrari's weekend, doesn't it? With Prost already out, Morbidelli not making, you know, inroads by any stretch of the imagination, and that just pretty much puts the kibosh on Ferrari's French Grand Prix.
Yeah, and to be fair to Gianni Morbidelli, you know, he's done a fair job. He was only 0.2 of a second slower in qualifying than Prost. He is one of the youngest men on the grid. He's 21 years of age, is Gianni Morbidelli. But then you also have to say, so is Mika Hakkinen. You know, that's the difference between the two.
Yes, and you just want to have a look further down the order. Those who come up from the pre-qualifying race, Martin Brundle is the highest of them in 15th position. And the others who are still in this race, Jake, are outside the top 15. Piercarlo Gintani in 16th, Willy Tyrrell in 17th, and Jochen Koch in 18th. So the 4 drivers from the pre-qualifying race who are still running are down in the bottom 4 positions of the runners. So 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th.
I want to know what witch doctor Mike Pittman has been visiting of late, because both Zach speeds are still going. They're 16th and 18th, which is admittedly right down at the back with Willy T. Ribbs, but normally those things go pop in the first 10 laps of the pre-qualifying race, and they've whacked it all on power, and somehow at Paul Ricard, the cars are working relatively well. So it's a magic result for Mike Pittman. I don't think they ever expected they would get to the end of races with so much attrition, but they're giving it the best they can. Senna is one of the drivers of the day for me. He's managed to get that car up from 26th to 6th, even though the car is not clearly capable of running with this man, Heinz-Hauer Frentzen in the Tyrrell. If more cars drop out in front, then he's got a good chance of a decent top 5 finish. Here's Cheever in the Ligier. Are his days at the team numbered, with Ligier set to plot for Alain Prost? Or will Prost consider, well, there's so many teams that could have him. Lotus, Brabham, Arrows. You know, there are so many teams with relatively competitive cars that would want to pop for him. Maybe even Leighton House. That car is designed by Adrian Newey. In the hands of Alain Prost, they could have something pretty magical there.
Could, and the Chesworth has taken 0.4 of a second out of Patrese in the battle for third place. The gap at the moment just under 8.6 seconds. So just want to keep an eye on the times as they cross the line. Patrese goes over the finish line now. Just wait for the Chesworth to cross over the line so that we will know how much more is taken out. He's now just 8 seconds behind. So at the moment, he's taken another half second out in the last sector alone. So De Cesare is absolutely flying there and within range of challenging Patrese for that final podium spot.
So there is the Williams of Riccardo Patrese. And we know now that the Williams team boss, Topher Smith, will be parting company with the Williams team at the end of the season in 1990. He hasn't announced what he's going to be doing. Apparently, we will find that out at the British Grand Prix. So, fascinating story there. And we know, obviously, that there's a management change going on at McLaren as well. That might well be linked to why the team is struggling so much to maintain the early season pace from 1990. But certainly the McLaren team struggling to keep their cars at the front in this season. And there will be a new team boss at the helm in 1990. Will they be able to keep the services of Ayrton Senna? That's another interesting question, isn't it? Because he's been with the team since 1988. He's won a title. He almost won the title last year. It doesn't look like he's going to win it this year. Just what's going to happen to Senna in 1991? We're talking about Prost joining a team mid-season from the British Grand Prix onwards. Will Senna remain at the McLaren team heading into 1991?
Well, that's a question that will hopefully be answered sooner rather than later. You know, as the driver market does open after the German Grand Prix. And looking at De Cesare's times, he has now taken another 0.8 of a second off Patrese on the last lap alone. So De Cesare's continuing to eat into Patrase's third place margin. I'm just going to have a look at Senna, who was stuck behind a back mark, and De Cesare's locking up there. That won't do his chances of catching his countryman any good whatsoever. Hakkinen just looking very, very content out in front, on course for his second victory of the season. There's been a change as well further down the order. Is that Gucci getting past Modena or something?
I think it is. Oh, that's Winkelhock. Oh, it's Fernandez getting past Gugelmin. Now, has he been hit? Has he hit somebody there? I think he did. So we need to look at that again as Winkelhock locks up in the final turn. Gets back on track. Right in front of Ivan Capelli. Dear, oh dear. Well, that was Joe Winkelhock being very clumsy indeed. He's damaged the rear wing. So back to the pits from last anyway goes Joe Winkelhock. But that's surely going to be... Oh, and that's Willie T. Ribbs out of the race. Willie T. Ribbs out of the race. Oh, what on earth is going on there for Willie T. Ribbs?
That is...
He's parking the car in the wrong direction. Oh, my goodness.
Well, we saw in the pre-qualifying race that he rejoined the circuit through no fault of his own. Well, I think you can most definitely say that was without a doubt his fault, and probably the most dangerous driving I've ever seen in Grand Prix racing. My goodness me, that's just outrageous driving there from Willie T. Ribbs. I don't know what on earth he was thinking by going in the direction he was going through there.
Goodness me. Well, that's a very nasty moment there. And Willie T. Ribbs is almost certainly going to be under investigation for that one. But then I think Joe Winkelhock is likely to be as well for his turn into Ivan Capelli. But certainly Willie T. Ribbs, goodness me, a very big moment there for the American, and not for the right reasons either. Oh, and Cheever's gone off! Goodness me, what's happened to Cheever? Let's have a look again. He's come through on the far side of the circuit, and he's just locked up by the look of it. Run wide, hit the curb. Oh, and the wheels parted company on the curb. Ligier's day is over.
That was so strange. I mean, you didn't expect the wheels to be coming off like that. I mean, whilst the Real's being pushed to the side of the circuit. so strange, isn't it?
Yeah, bizarre incident, but Eddie Cheever crashes out of the French Grand Prix, and that might be his last race with the Ligier team. We know that Ligier, with Renault engines, will be heavily influenced by the French board of directors. Will they be able to convince Alain Prost to join him as Willie T. Ribbs' car is wheeled off the circuit, the Real driver out of the race, and now we'll watch Modena as he battles with a rather lackluster Gerhard Berger.
Yes, and Berger not having the best of days, but at least he'll be on course for a points finish to maintain a decent lead in the Drivers' Championship. Cesaris under 7 seconds behind Patrese despite that lock-up earlier on, and Senna's he was beginning to close in on Frentzen, but I think Senna's been stuck behind traffic. And whilst Fingerhock may have been coming in for a new rear wing and rejoining the circuit, he will be in 16th place. And Will Fingerhock, so both stack speeds in 15th and 16th positions.
But they're still going, and that's the main thing. And if they keep going and finish the race, then they'll still get prize money for finishing a Grand Prix. You do get a little bit of money for doing so, 100 grand per car. So obviously it's a big moment for any team to get to the finish of a Grand Prix in terms of the financial repercussions. But I have a feeling that the days leading up to the British Grand Prix of 1990, it is absolutely astonishing situation there. So a big problem there for the Ligier team. Their race over, although Larini proving earlier on certainly that the car is capable enough of running at the sharp end of the field. I just can't begin to imagine what the kind of a fairy tale could be given if Prost could get into the Ligier as the reigning world champion and push for victory. There's Gianni Morbidelli. He's got a chance of bringing Ferrari a point in all of this by just keeping the car going. And Ferrari will be very grateful to Gianni Morbidelli for making that happen. But would they elevate him to a permanent race drive? That's the key factor for Gianni Morbidelli. He is a Marlboro young driver. He was only 0.2 of a second off Prost in qualifying. How much of this race performance is Morbidelli struggling with a car he can't do anything with? And how much of it is the fact that Morbidelli was thrown in at the deep end with not a lot of warning? I think it could be 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, if I was Chris Kavanagh, I'd give Morbidelli more than just the single chance. I mean, he's got another 2 races at least to prove that he can do it. Was that a car pulling off to the side, though, or was that just Boutsen going through?
It was just Boutsen heading through the shot, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I thought there was another car going wide there in the gravel, but no, I was thinking of something else. But you know, I would say with Morbidelli, he's got some potential within himself. I mean, he's still young. You know, he's still got some time ahead of him to prove that he warrants the driver. Sorry, warrants the right to be in Formula 1, and not just be in Formula 1, but to be at Ferrari. And who would not want to have Gianni Morbidelli in their team? I mean, Morbidelli's doing a fine job in a really inferior Ferrari car. And, you know, if he was to come home in the points, that would only be the 2nd time this season for Ferrari the 3rd time this season for Ferrari, because they did get the points in Phoenix, didn't they, despite not finishing at all. Yeah, it's been a respectful drive from Morbidelli, despite the mistakes he made earlier on, which would have seen him still be in the points, but there's still 8 laps to go in this one to see if there's anything that changes up front. But Mika Hakkinen continuing to pull away from Thierry Boutsen. And keep an eye as well on Cesaris' charge on Patrese. The gap is now down to just under 5 seconds between the 2 Italian drivers, and Ayrton Senna only 3.4 off Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 5th.
8 laps to go in the 1990 French Grand Prix, and 8 laps separate Mika Hakkinen from his 2nd career Grand Prix victory in only his 7th start. And that is a pretty exceptional record for the Brabham. There's Thierry Boutsen in the Williams in 2nd place, ahead of his teammate Riccardo Patrese. Williams looking on course for a big points haul here, but then so too are Brabham, with Hakkinen in the lead and Modena in 9th place. De Cesaris looking brilliant for Lotus. They might want to second guess whether promoting De Cesaris might just be temporary or whether it could be a permanent fixture for him. He's certainly got plenty of speed in that Lotus. For a 5th place for Frentzen. Tyrrell made a statement earlier in the race to say that Frentzen is now a permanent fixture with the Tyrrell team. How much of a backtrack is there going to be now that they know that Prost is available? Because there are several teams in this race. Arrows, Lotus, Ligier, Leighton House. probably, I would say, Tyrrell as well. Maybe even Williams, that would consider the possibility of bringing in the 1989 world champion, because he's not just the 89 world champion, he also won the title in 85 and 86. So he is a 3-time world champion. There's a genuine chance that he... But hang on a minute, there's also another team we haven't even considered as a possible. What about Benetton? They've been conspicuous by their absence today, but they've got Grand Prix winners in their cars that are both on a one-race ban, Piquet and Nannini. So they're a bit quiet and under the radar today, Benetton. But what about them? They could go for a push for Prost's signature. Brabham could as well.
That's a possibility. And there was a battle going on between Berger and Capelli over the last points-paying position in 10th place. But Berger's just managed to keep his nose in front. Or is Capelli going to get on the inside? Not quite there. So Leighton House, with Mauricio Gugelmin already in 8th position, could Capelli follow suit and get into a points-paying position there? So Berger not having the best of last stints at the moment. He's not having the best of weekends, if I'm honest with you, with Berger and Senna having a much better race. In fact, Senna is less than 2 seconds off Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the battle for 5th place now. That battle is far from over.
Well, Senna is arguably one of the best, if not the best driver in this Formula 1 paddock. He's not been in a position to win the race, but he's certainly been able to take the car from dead last on the grid after his back-of-the-grid penalty to storm up from 26th to 6th. His teammate Berger is having an absolute nightmare of a race. He's struggling even to keep up with Stefano Modena in the Brabham. That car is powerful, don't forget, but Modena has not exactly had a great season colouring himself in glory. Ivan Capelli has been on the watch list of Ferrari. They would love to bring an Italian driver to their main team, and Capelli is definitely one to watch for now because he's chasing after Berger. A lot of their decision-making process could be based on what he does in this battle with Berger. Can he hack it with the championship leader? Capelli, wheel-to-wheel with Berger, side by side. He's got on the power a lot earlier this time compared to the McLaren. The Leighton House, which is going much better than the McLaren. Can he hold it to the inside line and keep Berger at bay? Berger drives around the outside. Capelli keeps his foot in, blips the throttle, tucks back in behind the McLaren. This battle's not over yet, Tom.
No, it's not. I am fascinated by this battle. Leighton House versus McLaren. Wouldn't have been saying that at the start of the season. But this is a genuine battle as well. And let's not forget, behind Berger and Capelli is the race leader. So they don't want to get too much in the way of the race leader, Mika Hakkinen. But to be honest, what has Hakkinen got to worry about? He's got a 15-second lead over Thierry Boutsen behind him. And for Patrese and Chesres, the battle over there just seems to be deteriorating at the moment because Patrese managing the gap over the Chesres. I mean, the Chesres will be very, very happy with his 4th position, if I'm honest with you. Capelli's down the inside of Berger. Does he complete the move there? Not quite. They may be able to do it into turn 3. But he's probably too far back to challenge from there, is the Leighton House driver. He may be able to do it on the Mistral Straight like he did last time, so keep an eye out, Jake.
The thing is, they both have the Honda engine, so they're very similar in terms of power delivery and very similar in terms of horsepower. Perhaps a little bit more development has gone into the Leighton House Honda than into the McLaren Honda this year. But this is all about driver skill and dexterity. 5 laps to go for Mika Hakkinen, 6 to go for these two. But the car behind them is Mika Hakkinen, so Capelli wants to get on with this and get past Berger before Hakkinen closes up on them. So this is the opportunity now for Capelli. He really needs to step it up. He needs to be brave, not brave enough.
No, they may be able to do it into the hairpin. He's alongside now, look. Oh, no, he doesn't quite do it there. He's not close enough to do it. He's lacking that horsepower on the back straight. On the previous lap, he had his nose in front for a moment, but then Berger had the momentum.
Hakkinen slowing! I can't believe it! Mika Hakkinen in the Brabham from the lead. He's got a puncture himself. Hakkinen is out of the French Grand Prix. He had dominated. Hakkinen's race to lose, and the race is gone with a puncture. So it's Williams 1 and 2.
Well, will Topher be regretting his decision to stand down from the Williams team at the end of the season? But what rotten luck for the Brabham team and for Ewan Gale. Mika Hakkinen had done everything right in this race. This is similar to how Ayrton Senna's race in Canada panned out. Hakkinen's races had been taken from him right in a space of a flash that I cannot believe it. For Hakkinen and for Brabham. And that changes the picture in the Drivers' Championship. I mean, Berger hasn't had a very good race, but yet he's going to extend his lead in the championship with Hakkinen retiring, Warwick retiring, And the Lacey retiring.
And here comes Ayrton Senna. He's now in P5 as a result of Häkkönen's retirement. He's giving Frentzen pressure, so he may have the opportunity to get 4th place out of this and re-enter the Drivers' Championship to a certain degree. So Frentzen is obviously trying to handle Senna. Senna's still pushing hard here in 5th position, but the McLaren driver is not out of the woods in this Grand Prix yet. The Williams cars are 1st and 2nd. Andrea De Cesaris is now in a podium position for Lotus, and he knows he's got a chance here as Boutsen laps the Ferrari of Gianni Morbidelli, who is in 11th place now as he passes the scene of Häkkönen's retirement. So he is 1 place away from a championship point for Ferrari, as Capelli and Berger now scrap over the last 2 points of the race rather than the last point. So a disaster for Brabham, but it's great news for Williams. They are 1 and 2. And Stefano Modena. Modena's got a puncture. Both the Brabhams out. I don't believe it.
Well, who would have thought that? I mean, you just have to feel for Ewan Gale right now. This is not happening for him. Surely not.
It's got to be something to do with the way that the Brabham chassis has coped with the final strategy, final stint of the car. But it's out of the race. Both Brabhams, they will score no points. And their championship chances in tatters now. What an absolute disaster for Brabham. And that puts Ferrari back into the points with Gianni Morbidelli in 10th.
Well, just as thought you've seen everything in Grand Prix racing, you get a day like this. And promoted into the points, Gianni Morbidelli for Ferrari. Well,
yep.
And the Zach speeds as well, up to, I think now, 13th and 14th.
Indeed they will be. Yes, it's going to take a while for Winkelhock to get onto the top of that time chart, because he's still got to unlap himself twice from Häkkönen, who is parked at the side of the road. But Patrese in 2nd to his teammate Thierry Boutsen with 3 laps to go in the 1990 French Grand Prix. This is a big moment for Williams, who are going to bow out of their association with Topher Smith, at least victorious once in the 1990 season, the way things are going. Lotus are going to be 3rd, the way things are. Tyrrell are battling with McLaren for 4th place. And this is an absolutely astonishing Grand Prix that has so many twists and turns, both on and off the racetrack. But Brabham are cruelly robbed of anything from this race when they had controlled the pace throughout, but punctures put not just one of their cars out, but both of their cars out in dramatic fashion. Berger still under pressure from Ivan Capelli for what is now 8th place. It was 10th a few laps ago.
Yes, and Frentzen is still under pressure from Ayrton Senna. The gap was, I thought a moment ago, was about half a second or even less than that. The gap is now 7/10 of a second. Now it's back to half a second, or in fact less than that. So let's keep an eye on this battle between Frentzen and Senna, Jake, because this is going to go right to the very end.
So there is Ayrton Senna pushing hard to close up on the Tyrrell of new boy Heinz-Harald Frentzen. This is his Grand Prix debut in very similar circumstances to Jean Alesi a year ago. If you remember, in his first Grand Prix, Jean Alesi was able to get the car home in 4th place at where? Paul Ricard. So Frentzen may be able to repeat history within the Tyrrell team and stake a claim for the 2nd seat full-time this year. Tyrrell have already announced it. But what an astonishing situation this could turn into in the closing stages of this Grand Prix. There's Andrea De Cesaris looking to get his 2nd best result in Grand Prix racing, a 3rd place finish for Lotus. And that will definitely put him in good stead for a full-time seat for the rest of the year, unless Lotus decide to go and sign a world champion.
And if I was to go for a driver of the day, Jake, Ayrton Senna would be my man. From the back of the grid to within half a minute of the race winner, Thierry Boutsen. And it's still not over as far as his race is concerned, because he's still got Frentzen to battle for over 4th place, which could help him in the World Championship should he regain the form that he had from last year and the year before.
For me, it's between this man, Andrea De Cesaris, straight into the Lotus and getting a podium, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen, new boy, taking on and battling with Ayrton Senna and showing him a clean pair of heels. It's a pretty good debut from both men. So, of course, De Cesaris, it's not his Formula 1 debut, but it's certainly his season debut, if you like. This man, though, well, he genuinely didn't know if he could win a Grand Prix today. Certainly, in the closing stages, he may have thought that it was gone with the Brabham pulling away, and especially after his spin earlier on, where he lost 12 seconds. But Boutsen just needed to keep the faith. Williams just needed to stay strong. And it looks as though they're going to get not just a win, but a second place. And in terms of the Constructors' Championship, that is massive for Williams. So Boutsen will come through in the final couple of corners of this dramatic, thrilling, spellbinding French Grand Prix. And Thierry Boutsen is going to bring the Williams home. There's going to be some fallout because obviously this could have been a win for Renault at the start of the season. It is a win for Williams Honda as out of the final turn, Thierry Boutsen wins the 1990 French Grand Prix and becomes the 6th different race winner in 7 Grand Prix this year. And Gianni Morbidelli brings Ferrari a point after a miserable race. They can at least score another championship point as Patrese comes home second, De Cesaris third.
So just keep an eye out for Frentzen and Senna. Frentzen's got over a second over Hakkinen, so he should hold on to 4th place, and Senna's wheeled him in.
But Senna is unable to get anything more than 5th position today. Fernandez in 6th place in the Arrows, only a couple of seconds back. That's an unenviable... that's a very enviable display from him. Gugelmin driving solidly on a one-stop strategy as well in 7th place ahead of Gerhard Berger, who struggled to shake off the other Leighton house of Ivan Capelli right to the death. So Berger, conspicuous by his absence, and obviously he's got some explaining to do in the steward's office later. But what an astonishing French Grand Prix, and it's a Williams 1-2. Absolutely majestic victory for the Williams team. A 1-2 for them. Boutsen ahead of Patrese. De Cesaris in 3rd for Lotus. And that is a maximum score from the race itself for Williams. 27 points in the Constructors' Championship for them. A wonderful result for Topher Smith and the whole of the Williams team as we head into the closing of the race. Boutsen and Patrese are Williams 1-2. De Cesaris 3rd for Lotus. Frentzen on his debut in Formula 1, 4th for Tyrrell. Senna is 5th. Fernandez a brilliant 6th in the Arrows. 7th for Gugelmin. 8th for Berger. 9th for Capelli. And 10th for Morbidelli in the Ferrari. Brundle is 11th from Jan Lammers. Ginzani and Winkelhock bring the Zach Speeds home. The Brabhams are still classified as finishers despite their punctures, so they will get prize money. But for Cheever, Ribbs, Warwick, Alboreto, Larini, Cruelly, Irvine, Wendlinger, Alesi and Prost, heartbreak on home soil. And for Pierluigi Martini, they walk away from the French Grand Prix with very little indeed. Hakkinen gets the point for the fastest lap of the race, but it's bitter recompense for him. It's wonderful, heaven-sent glory for the Williams team as they are 1st and 2nd in the 1990 French Grand Prix. Tom, what a crazy French Grand Prix.
Oh, it was fabulous. I mean, we had a cracking showing in Mexico City and an astonishing race in Montreal, and Paul Ricard very much joins that list there. And you have to feel for the Brabham team and for Mika Hakkinen, because this was their race to win. They deserved to win all day long, and mechanical problems has sidelined the team, but Williams won't care. Topher Smith won't care for sure. He's happy that he's got the result, and not just the race win, but 2nd place as well. It's the first time since 1987, I believe, that Williams have actually won and actually got a 1-2. So a very, very good result for Topher and for Patrese and for Boutsen, and I just cannot bear to think for Ewan Gale after that race result, because you very much had the race in your back pocket there, Ewan, but it fell away for you there, as it seemed.
Yeah, gutted, to be honest, Tom. It's one of those things, we know that we've had reliability problems all season, so we kind of expected maybe one car to drop out, maybe with the transmissions being the usual one this season. To have a puncture, it was a bit of a surprise. So yeah, devastated, but it is what it is. We know we've got a strong car. We move on to the next race.
We have to ask the question, Ewan. Obviously, mid-race, we heard from Le Monde that Alain Prost told them he's walking away from Ferrari with immediate effect. Is there a space in the Brabham team for Alain Prost if he wants it?
Well, it's interesting because I'm sure it's no secret throughout the paddock. Obviously, everyone sees everything that goes on. We have been speaking to Alain's representatives already ahead of 91 with a view to a seat for him. So, it'd be nice if he would be up for coming to Brabham for the rest of the season and maybe getting an eye in with the team. And then seeing whether he'd want to stay next year. We know we've got race-winning machinery, obviously Mika with his win in Imola. So, and we've shown today that we're fast, so you've just got to get the reliability on form. But, we got speed, we've got a youngster like Mika we obviously got a good team that have won championships before in the past. I know it's a long way in the past, but yeah, I'm sure Alan would be up for at least talks, and there'll be a space in the team. You know, you can't not make space for a driver like Alan. So we do everything in our power to make him feel comfortable at the team if he so chooses to come over. And yeah, look forward to hopefully opening negotiations.
Well, fascinating stuff. Thanks, Ewan. Unfortunate to lose the race, but perhaps there are still great times ahead for Brabham. Thanks very much. Let's have a word with Michael Gillespie of the Minardi team. Another solid afternoon's racing for the Minardi team today. 11th place, not quite a championship point on this occasion, but the cars were there. They were obviously strong, and they were able to be durable and reliable enough to get through to the Grand Prix in the first place.
Yeah, all in all, a positive weekend for us. Could have been better, but we'll take what we can and take it forward, perhaps.
Now, obviously, we saw that Martini is willing to bid for the Ferrari seat. First of all, what do you think the chances are of that actually happening? And second of all, what does that do to you guys if you lose Martini?
Say it's 50-50 at the moment, but we'll move. We'll try and adjust accordingly if it comes to that, certainly. But I think if you're an Italian driver of any kind, the dream is to drive for Ferrari. When the opportunity comes up, it's too good to turn down, no matter what state they're in. It's like Ferrari at the end of the day.
It's a very good point.
I was just going to say something, Michael. Martini's currently leading the GoBobby.UK Cup, and with his position at the top of that particular championship, does Martini feel that he is prepared to sacrifice that in order to have the opportunity to race for Ferrari, or would you still want to have him there, considering how brilliant he has been for the Minardi team?
As much as I'd like to have him, we'll just have to see what happens, really. I'd like to keep him for the rest of the season, but he seems interested, and he said that if there's interest from Ferrari, he'd happily accept. But we'll see what happens their side, and but at the moment, it's all really up in the air, really.
Fascinating stuff. Well, thanks for talking to us, Michael. We wish you all the best for the British Grand Prix. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm off to watch the World Cup final now.
Oh, of course. Well, we hope it all goes well. Thank you. Let's have a bit of a word with Ben Hackerson. It's been unusual to see the Arrows team not being so strong in the early part of the season, but certainly in the latter stages of the mid-season, the cars have been impressive. Ben, good to see that not just Michele, but also Adrian making a good impression and surprising a lot of people. Both cars doing a fantastic job today over the course of the race.
Yeah, we've been very happy with our drivers this season. It's just the car's been a bit lacking. But recently we found a bit of an error in the car, fixed it, and now we're more competitive.
So obviously Michele not quite getting the chance to get to the finish perhaps the way he deserved, but Adrian Fernandez is colouring himself in glory. He wasn't really known very well in Europe before this. What is it about this particular talent that made him a neat fit for Arrows?
He's a great team player, to be honest, and gets on with Michele pretty well, and they're working well as a team with the setup, because we didn't really like being at the back, and the drivers decided to work together instead of fighting each other.
Now, again, we have to ask this question because Prost has made this statement. He will consider joining a team mid-season as long as they're in the top 10. You guys share the same engines as the Benetton, the Works Ford. Just how strong a case do you guys think you can make to Alain to convince him that you guys are the guys to give the keys? Or can you even consider that when you've got drivers as strong as Michele and Adrian at the team?
Well, we'll have to look at what our two drivers want to do. If they would like to go to Ferrari in a swap deal, we'd be open to that. But if Alan just looks at the performance of the car recently, you could see we've got a decent car now, so there's no reason he can't be competitive in it.
Fascinating stuff.
I want to add something as well there, Ben. I mean, Arrows seems to be on the climb at the moment with the recent run of results. I mean, Adrian did very well at his home event in Mexico. What can we expect to see from the Irish team? I know there's the thing with Alan Prost at the moment. We don't know where he's going to be driving next from Silverstone onwards. But are you confident he can end the season on the high? Because surely a top 10 position in the Constructors' Championship is the target for your team.
It is, but I'd love to score a podium by the end of the season, maybe even a win. We're going to keep ploughing into the engine, keep getting more brake horsepower to see how far up we can get.
Fascinating. We're really excited to see what Arrows can do in the second half of the season. Ben, thanks very much for talking to us.
Cheers.
Let's grab a quick shifty with Sam Hall. A very impressive start to Heinz-Harald Frenzen's career at Tyrrell. You must feel devastated with Jean Alesi, the second fastest driver in the Grand Prix. Frenzen, the third fastest driver. So all's rosy at Tyrrell, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, when it became available or known that Alain Prost was available for the rest of the season, we kind of went, well, that's 6 million we've saved there, because if this had been one race early, we probably would have gone for him. But as the Lotus team boss said midway through the race, why would we pay 6 million for a stroppy Frenchman? So, I mean, yeah, I'm very happy with how Heinz-Harald performed today. I think we've got a decent driver on our hands, and I think even after that one outing, we're going to have a potential fight on our hands to keep him for next year, actually, which I think we might have to reevaluate our driver lineup for next year. And yeah, definitely he's going to be involved in that, or we hope he'll be involved with that.
Now, Jean was able to keep on into 1990, and obviously the car is a good one. Harvey Postlethwaite has obviously put together a bit of a stunner of a car. But to have Frentzen there as well now, clearly you've got two very boisterous young talents who have the potential to run at the front of the field. Is this finally the resurgence of the Tyrrell team? We've been waiting for a title from you guys since 1973. The cars have won races in the past, but there's been no consistency. Is this the turning of the guard?
Well, I think we have got we've proven we have one of the most reliable, one of the fastest cars on the grid. We don't often retire from races today. Obviously one of the exceptions. So yeah, I think Constructors' Championship we have quite a good chance at, especially as I think McLaren may be hampered potentially with a race ban for Gerhard Berger with his mounting early race incidents. Obviously he got penalised at Monaco and goes and does the same thing to another team here. So clearly a fine didn't work, and I think it might be taken out of the team's hands, and he might get something more severe here. But yeah, I think Constructors' Championship we have a very good shout, especially with Frentzen coming in and picking up where Rydell had evidently not been performing.
Well, fascinating stuff. We're really interested to see how the title continues. Thank you very much, Sam Hall. Let's have a word with Ryan Ferris, team boss at the Lotus team. Ryan, there have been some good days for Lotus, but given the situation the team was in, struggling for a little bit of financial strength and a little bit of momentum, to bring De Cesaris in place of Donnelly, it seems to have been the masterstroke, because that talent has clearly bubbled up to the surface again.
Yes, we did not expect to see De Cesaris get in that car and hit the ground running the way he has. And he was very lucky indeed, because he was also involved in that crash or incident where Berger just, I don't know what he was doing, just sent one up the inside to a gap that wasn't there and took De Cesaris off along with someone else. But to have recovered from that and get onto the podium, it's an amazing drive from De Cesaris.
So this is another interesting question that we have to ask, because obviously Alain Prost has told the world that his services are available to the highest bidder. Is Lotus part of that? If you've got Warwick, who's pretty handy, if you've got De Cesaris, who's pretty handy, do you need Alain Prost?
No, I don't think we do. I think 6 million is money that I don't think we need to be spending on another driver. Obviously, De Cesaris has shown us that he can score podiums, and Warwick has shown us that he can score podiums. So to have Prost just for the end of the season, we don't really need him for.
Interesting. So Lotus are staying as they are, which is fascinating. Tom, did you have a question?
I had a question for Ryan. Where has Warwick's form gone? Because that's 2 races in a row that he's failed to finish, and he's in contention for the Drivers' Championship. I mean, is this a sign of things to come, or is it a blip?
I just think he's been unlucky, really. Both races he's gone out with punctures, and up until that point he hadn't really had much in the way of problems. I just think it's just been unlucky, really. I think we should see, because he was on quite a good strategy. He was on the one-stop strategy. If it hadn't have been for his slight spin he had, he'd have came out quite highly on the one-stop. So I think if things had aligned for him today, he would have also had quite a good race. So I don't think it's anything to be too worried at the moment.
Fascinating stuff. Well, thank you very much indeed for talking to us. We wish you all the best ahead of your home race, the British Grand Prix. Thank you. And let's have one final word with our winning constructor, Williams, and their team boss, Topher Smith. Topher, it's been a long time coming in 1990. The cars had pace all the way through the year, but to get it together and to get a win, but to get a 1-2, that must be very sweet indeed for Williams.
Oh, it's an absolutely fantastic result, Jake. I couldn't be happier with the effort that both Thierry and Riccardo put in. Although, I think more than anything at the moment, I'm just feeling more of a sense of relief that we actually got both cars to the finish for once. I think it shows that we do have the speed in the car, and when we are able to make it to the end, this is the sort of result we can produce.
So, obviously now we focus on the remainder of the season. There is a chance now for Williams to make a title pitch. You have told us that at the British Grand Prix, there's going to be news on where you'll be in 1991. We don't know what that is yet, but is this your chance to bow out at the top of your form?
Well, first of all, to clarify, the decision on my leaving Williams at the end of the season has already been confirmed, as I mentioned at the last round. This victory changes nothing. I said in my official press release at the last race that the aim was to take at least one Grand Prix victory with the team before departing, although I wasn't really expecting to get that at the very next Grand Prix, so target's achieved there, and as you say, it's a chance to bow out on a high. I think now that we have got the speed in the car and apparently the reliability in the car as well, I think we do have a chance of mounting a title challenge in the second half of the season. We're not going to rest on our laurels just yet. It's only one race, it's one result. It's absolutely fantastic for us and for the team and for the drivers, but we've still got quite a few races to go. There's a lot of stiff competition out there, and we'll just have to see how the rest of the season goes.
Okay, go on, Tom.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Topher, should you win at least another couple of races, or even 3 races, or even the World Championship itself, whether it's the drivers or the constructors, would you consider reversing your decision of standing down for the Williams team?
I think I'd probably have to consider that as it comes. The offer that I've got for 1991 is a very attractive one. It's one that I'm very excited about. And like most of me still wants to see that through. If we do continue to have success for the rest of the season, pick up some more Grand Prix victories, I might reconsider. But at this moment in time, I'm still very much committed to my 1991 programme.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations to Williams and a brilliant victory in the French Grand Prix. Congratulations, Topher. Good job.
Thank you very much, Jake.
Let's close with a fantastic roundup of another crazy Grand Prix. 6 different winners, 7 races, Tom. There's no real championship contender coming forward. It's very close up at the front end of the field. And we head to Silverstone, a circuit which generally produces a heck of a lot of great racing.
It does, and the home of motorsport as well. You can't deny Silverstone's prestigious, iconic location for Grand Prix racing, and I'm very much looking forward to it. And as far as the situation for the championship is concerned, Gerhard Berger is still very much firm favourite, but there's still quite some way to go. Yeah, we've still got another 9 races of this championship to do, and there is plenty at stake. And the fact we've had 6 Grand Prix winners from the first 7 races this season, anything can happen.
Anything can happen, and it usually does. Thank you very much indeed, Tom Kent, for joining me in the commentary box. The battle continues and the plot thickens. Alain Prost is no longer at Ferrari. He has walked away. Who will pick up his services? Will that change the championship fight? With 6 different winners from 7 races, is he even still in the championship fight? It's going to be an interesting one. The British Grand Prix will be on Friday of this week. I'm Jake Sanson. Enjoy the rest of the week. We'll see you on Friday for the 1990 British Grand Prix.